brakes as late as possible. There's contact between the two of them, Vine centre across. Oh no!
Oh, we've got massive carnage.
Design goes wide, through goes Anthony Harrison. Oh, they spun. The teammates have come together. Mills is through the air. There's contact in the middle of the lead at Indianapolis. McKinzie jumps.
Hello, good evening and welcome ladies and gentlemen to another round of entertaining and intense action in the one and only Alpha Touring Challenge Season 16 as brought to you on the premier sim racing platform available only on PC known as iRacing and proudly powered by both Syncmesh and Glass and Steel Photography and Design. That's right folks, another week has come around as quick as that and we're here today for round number 6 of 10 as we've made our way all the way to Ontario in Canada for the Canadian Tire Motorsport Park. Typically referred to as Mosport as a concatenation of motorsport and park, this circuit has been open since 1961, and what a circuit it is. 2.45 miles in length and one of Canada's premier racing circuits, arguably perhaps overshadowed to a degree by Montreal. Whilst this may not be a hybrid street circuit, it's arguably even more daunting. With an array of 10 corners which flow and weave their way through natural hilly terrain, this is a circuit where many of its bends are high speed, but they're also incredibly blind. And what it means for drivers, whether they're in touring cars or in any machinery that take to this circuit, they've got to be absolutely ready to commit themselves to every apex, because not get it right there and they may find themselves either understeering out wide or going spinning around or a combination of the two. And therefore it really is the true driver circuit for which our drivers need to prove themselves as being competent in their abilities, because a lack of competence may be very quickly undermined. But where are my manners? Allow me to welcome you all to this post-round broadcast from circuit side as we catch up with all the racing action which occurred as of Monday the 9th of February 2026, but we bring it to you as if it were live this Tuesday the 10th of February, and therefore it's close as possible to the raw live viewing experience for you guys and girls tuning at home. All this you can catch, of course, on YouTube at youtube.com and search for Paul Walsh Productions, all 30 Paul Walsh, and you can catch the weekly racing action there for Season 16 of the Alpha Touring Challenge. In the content review, you have myself, my name is Paul Walsh, and I'll be bringing you all the racing action as it unfolds over the course of the season. And as for our schedule tonight in this broadcast, times in Eastern Standard Time EST, or Universal Coordinate Time -5, UTC -5, as we can see in approximately what will be around about 13 minutes time, when we make our way into our qualifying session at 9:15 this evening, 10 minutes in duration, a closed session where drivers have 3 laps available to them, and we do see the return of qualifying after our incredible 5-year anniversary, which was devoid of a qualifying session. Indeed, through the power of Kermit washing, qualifying never existed there. And if you know, you know. If you don't, well, you'll have to ask what that was all about in the Alpha Touring Challenge community Discord. But after we complete our qualifying session, we'll then be making the way to the grid for the first of our 2 races, what this being a sprint race round. Race number 1, of course, 25 minutes in length, just like race number 2, but race 1 cut up first, and that'll be at approximately 9:25 this evening, after which we'll take a brief breather before returning to the grid at just around 5 to 10, and then we'll be getting ready to go for our second race of the day. And now we moved into the second half of the season after our incredible race at Watkins Glen last time out. Well, there are plenty of stories to talk about, and let's jump straight into the thick of them, shall we? So taking a look at our calendar then, we have made our way over the halfway point. Last time out in the US state of New York, it was Watkins Glen International, and we celebrated the 5th birthday of the AlphaTaurian Challenge with what was around to be remembered. Overall, it was a battle whereby we did see Wojciech Swirydowicz and Michael Polasek roar the way through from towards the back of the Alpha and the Gammas, where the fact there was no qualifying session in the end, and instead we opted to go with what was a qualifying race, but that didn't quite work out, so in the end we went for setting the grid based on what would be the championship standings. And well, with the championship standings being inverted for the Alpha and Gammas, it would be Polasek and Swirydowicz should be starting a little bit further back. However, when they made the way through, Polasek in the end found his way through on lap number 12 and took third place of a Swirydowicz, and then the two of them were carrying through together to the front of the field. But in the pit stops, that's where the differences lay, with Polasek having a quicker pit stop by the best part of 1.2 seconds, and that gap opened up enough that in the end he was able to run away for his 4th win of the season. Meanwhile, in the Gamma class, well, there were plenty of surprises afoot, but the biggest one of them all, of course, was a first win of the season for Zachary Leopold, who inherited the pole position on the grid, with David Mitchell having to start from the pit lane due to changing his car beyond the 1-car change limit over the course of the season. I do believe David Mitchell is making a habit of it, and you'll see the Kermit the Frog livery on his car today as I understand it. But we did see Zachary Leopold manage the race very well, although he was never too far apart from the pressure of both Matthew Shepka and Zachary Bowman, who both put together some absolutely brilliant performances of their own to finish on the podium, and in the end what we got to see was a 4-second gap between the trio come the finish line. As for the Delta class, it was a first time win for Angel Bonilla Soto. In his Audi RS3, he was absolutely lightning quick, and he never looked as though he was going to give up the lead of the race at any point. As everyone in the Delta class continued to fight each other, he was able to walk away. Although some would say, if it were not for the intense fighting between Ronald Meffo and Mark Darnell, could we have seen Meffo potentially take his first win of the season, because he was looking very quick for the mid portion of the race onwards? Well, in the end, we didn't quite get to see that, because Mark Darnell put up an absolutely stoic battle, which in the end Ronald Meffo had to chisel away at, and those two really been one of the highlights of the battles if we didn't see a fight for the win. But here we are then. It's time for round number 6 of the Canadian Tire Motorsports Park, and we get set for another 2 25-minute sprint races. We return to that format, the penultimate time we see it this season. The only other time we're going to see it is round number 8 at the Alton Park Circuit in 2 weeks' time. And well, what exactly is in store for our drivers when it comes to the circuit itself? Well, thankfully, we've got our cheat sheet prepared for us, and a huge thank you to none other than the administrators at the AlphaTaurian Challenge Committee for putting these cheat sheets together on a weekly basis. Located near Bowmanville in Ontario, Canada, 2.45 miles in length or 3.95 kilometers in length, depending on your preference of units. But what does not change, regardless of the units of length, is the number of quarters. 10 quarters, and many of these quarters being very tricky to master, even when you're out there by yourself, let alone when you're in race conditions, because so many of them are high speed and they are blind, as you can see from the circuit map, albeit a huge thank you to iRacing.com for their track map, as well as the absolutely brilliant simulator. And the one limitation of a two-dimensional map is it doesn't show you all those elevation changes woven into its tarmac, and therefore it does make this one of those circuits that has to be seen to be believed. But in terms of our format, well, of course, we do have our 2 sprint races, of which the grid for race number 2 shall be a top 13 inversion, the results from race number 1. More on that very shortly. But in terms of our circuit ratings, tyre stress, this is going to be one of the most aggressive on tyre wear, particularly the front right tyre is going to take an absolute beating over the race distance here through turns 2 and 4, and the front left will take it through turns 1, 3 and 5. And well, other drivers, we need to be aware of the fact that as they wear that tyre down, understeer is going to be an increasingly important factor, and therefore they need to be ready to manage tyre wear even in 2 25-minute sprint races. If anything, the sprint races are going to see that tyre wear become even more pronounced, because there's less of an expectation to have to manage your tyres, because you are not planning to come into the pits at any point. So therefore we could really see some quick drivers at the start suddenly fall behind because tyre wear goes against them. As for braking, we do have a couple of heavy braking zones, the heaviest of which being into Sir Sterling Moss corner at turn number 5, aptly named after the British legend, and it was essentially redesigned based on his suggestions all the way back in the 1970s, when we did see the Formula 1 crowd gradually make the way over to this circuit, albeit I don't believe that Formula 1 ever held a formal race here, although I may be mistaken. My history's not too good on that regard, but indeed there was a lot of influence, particularly from Sir Sterling Moss, and that's how turn 5 went from being a single apex hairpin into a double apex hairpin, if you're curious of your history around this circuit. Otherwise, the majority of the layout has remained the same. All the other corners, as far as I'm aware, have been here since day 1 of the circuit. It's only Moss Bend that has been altered. Regardless, going off topic and going back to heavy braking, well, we will see heavy braking and battles on the brakes uphill from the bottom of turn number 4 to the rise of turn number 5, and we'll also see some moderate braking zones in the run of the S's into White's Corner, turns 8, 9 and 10, and also we will see a degree of brake work being put in at turns 1, 2 and 3, but it's much lighter by comparison, and that's why we're giving it a rating of 3. Now, overtake difficulty, this is one of the hardest circuits to go battling at. Not because you can't go too wide around here, but the problem is it's all about momentum and rhythm. And whereby you may look for a move up the inside in, say, Clayton Corner at turn number 2, but what you've got to be careful of the fact is, given it's such a tight line there and it's so blind towards the apex, if you carry a lot of momentum up the inside, you may quickly understeer straight off the road. Conversely, if you try to go around the outside, you'll very quickly find yourself understeering out wide regardless, and your rival on the inside can essentially get their elbows out. And elbows out racing touring car is the key thing, and you can expect elbows to be out here today to defend the position. One of the main overtaking spots, therefore, is the Marion Andretti straightaway, which runs all the way from Moss Bend at turn 5 all the way up to the S's at turns 8, 9 and 10. We expect moves to be set up down the back straight and then conclude by White's Corner to complete a lap and do it all over again. As for off-tracks, we give this a moderate rating of a 3 because there's plenty of grass to go around, but normally when you do take a trip to the grass, you're going to find your way very quickly to a barrier. However, that's particularly in the first half, lap through turns 1, 2 and 3, whereas in the latter sections lap, it's a lot easier to recover from off-tracks. In terms of pit entry, it's considered to be hard, although hopefully we won't be seeing too many drivers come into the pits given the format of the races today. Given the fact you have to deflect your way off of the exit at turn number 9 to the inside of the pit lane at turn number 10, and as a pit exit, it's very easy for the simple reason you come out parallel to turn number 1 and you carry a lot of speed out of the pit lane. Now, in terms of what you see on our diagram here, talking about the best overtaking zones, well, turn number 3 is definitely one of the best out there because it is a slower blind apex bend and it does offer you the ability to go for the switchback there if required. It doesn't have pronounced an elevation change through the corner compared to Clayton at turn number 2. But for Quebec Corner, we don't expect overtakes to be too evident in the run through turns 4 and 5. If anything, we expect there to be plenty of traffic jams early on in the race, given how the field will concertina up down there, and the same with the way in the entry to turn number 3. Meanwhile, as the drivers make the way down the back stretch, we can expect there to be plenty of battling before they get ready to the overtaking zone, arguably the optimum zone of the SS3 Whites at turns 8, 9 and 10. As for early traffic jams, we can also expect one at White's Corner on the opening lap, but also you may notice what is an early traffic jam which is seen right in the heart of the circuit there. And, well, we don't have too long to tell you about the tragic incident of 2022, the car park incident, but we'll leave it there. Sad times in the AlphaTauri Challenge community, but if you want to know more, do join the official Discord there, and I'm sure they'll be able to tell you about the great car park jam of 2022. But with that sad tale out of the way, we also talk a little bit there about the early traffic jams that you can see elsewhere and the past instance as well, particularly at Clayton Corner at turn number 2, where we can expect huge instance there if drivers get it very wrong, and normally if two cars come together through there, they'll both be making the way to the outside and to the grass. As for Moss Bend as well, we can expect drivers to go a bit deep, and if they do, they may take a trip to the weeds very quickly, and the S's as well. Very close, too wide through there, and we will see our drivers normally rub paint, and if they do and make it a little bit too aggressive, we could see a couple of drivers making the way loose, and well, you never know what's going to happen here at the Canadian Tire Motorsports Park, and that's why it's arguably one of Canada's premier racing circuits, if not, and it should not be overshadowed by what is Montreal in any degree or regard. But without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, that's a quick update on our circuit for today. Very exciting circuit to go racing at. Let's give you a reminder of the rules before we do go racing. And in terms of our rules, car setup-wise, it is open setups every step of the way. Our drivers bring a setup of their choosing to each and every race session. Now, for our sprint races, they shall commence via a standing start, as is the tradition of the AlphaTauri Challenge and TCR Racing. The grid for race 2 shall be set based on the results of race 1, with the top 13 positions inverted. What that means in layman's terms is that we take the top 13 finishers of race number 1 and we flip them to set the grid for race number 2. So the winner of race number 1 starts in 13th place overall for race number 2, and we continue that inversion until we get to your 13th place finisher, who naturally starts on pole position for race 2. Meanwhile, those who finish 14th and downwards, you guessed it absolutely right, they will be starting exactly where they finished at race number 1 when they go to the grid for race number 2. Now, no mandatory pit stop requirements in either of the races. We are not expecting anyone to come into the pits unless they need to repair the car, of which they have one fast repair available, or if they have been put on the naughty step, they will receive a drive-through penalty of 15 instant points, and they may need to serve that, or they could be disqualified if they get to 30, although we've yet to see that. All race stewarding, meanwhile, shall be conducted post-race. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, in mind, let's head back to circuit side, and in good time as well, because as we're about to make our way into what will be the qualifying session, let's walk you through what will be those championship standings coming into this round, starting with the overall Drivers' Championship. And as we can see, looking at your top 20 overall Drivers' Championship after 5 rounds of racing, it is Michael Polasek who leads on 597 points. He is ahead of Micah Hendricks there, and it is a growing gap given the fact that he is really right now controlling the momentum at the very top. However, for Hendricks, it was a day of technical difficulties at Watkins Glen. It was not necessarily an anniversary to be remembered for him, and therefore, with connectivity issues and a clock smash, it's meant that he only managed to finish 36th last time out, and Logan McKinzie now it's only 7 points behind. McKinzie, conversely, had a solid day last time out. He really was the third fastest of everybody else. He could not stay for the leaders of Polasek or Swirydowicz at Watkins Glen, but he did very well to secure a third place finish, and with that, it does mean now that he is moving closer to that second place spot, and can he steal it away from Hendricks today? Well, we'll have to wait and see. Behind the Yellow Flag Motorsport, Crop Promotions and Pennzoil Super Touring drivers, we then have Wojciech Swirydowicz, and right now, the challenge for Swirydowicz is the fact there's a degree of inconsistency as this season has gone on, so therefore you would think that he should be in second place, given the fact he is the second fastest compared to Michael Polasek on average. However, those inconsistencies and those instances he's been involved in have meant that right now he sits in fourth place for breakfast or dinner. Meanwhile, for Raymond to you, he is currently your leading Gamma driver overall. The Beaver and D's driver continuing to impress. Albeit his progress was a little bit slower than normal at Watkins Glen, but it did seem as though the Hyundai Velocity drivers either had it all go their way or did not make as much progress as they would have liked on the day, and Teal was one in the latter category for Beaver and D's, and therefore it means that Dan McFarlane has moved just that little bit closer for Sim Racing Grid. John Lauzon completes the top 3 of the Gamma class there overall for Beaver and D's as well, so a little bit further behind his teammate, and Lauzon once again find himself not quite able to make as much progress, and indeed, whilst Tio was able to get through in the end, unfortunately for Lauzon, he was blocked and locked up in battles for a little bit longer. John Daniels sits in 8th place there for T0 Racing Summit, a further 40 behind, but he is comfortably the best part there of Wage 27 ahead of Cooper Akers, with the Pennzoil Super Touring drive then giving way to your Delta overall leader of Tyler Long for T0 Racing Ascent. And well, Tyler wasn't on the grid last time out, so therefore he missed the 5-year anniversary special, but of course he has committed that now as a drop score, so that's why he's not lost any ground. Matt Shepka sits best the rest in 11th place there for Kirby Enthusiasm Autosport, securing a brilliant class podium and also a very solid run there to finish inside the top 15, and some huge points coming his way at long last, with Zachary Leopold there being absolutely galvanised by his Gamma win, and indeed some huge points coming to him. I do believe it was a full place finish last time out overall, and that's why he's had the lion's share of the points and leapt so far up. And he did keep Logan McKinzie honest every step of the way last time out in New York. Zachary Bowman just sits behind him as the battle of the true Zacks continues, and the Pennzoil Super Touring driver is then followed up by Mike D'Almeida for Yellow Flag Motorsport, and Matthew Melior, who wasn't on the grid last time out, and the Canadian driver for CG, dropping down to 15th place. Major Bod Survive sits in 16th, just ahead of your second Delta driver of Chris McDonald for Gator Racing, and it's Connor Achitella, James Carr, and Franz Washing who complete your overall top 20. But from them, we then come to the Gamma standings, and this is where things get that little bit more intricate, because Raymond to you leads on 533 points, but given last time out the fact that he finished the, 6th place in the class, and his progress was slow, it opened up a door for Dan McFarlane to try and make even more progress, of which he did, and therefore the Sim Racing Grid drive with the 4th place in class was able to pick up a better haul of points, and he's been able to close that gap down a little bit and put himself right between the two Beaver and D's drivers. John Lauzon sits in 3rd, and well, with that right now, needs to find a way to come back quickly, because if anything, he's now started to fall slightly into the clutches of the rest of the field. Albeit he still does have the buffer of the best part there of 51 points over T0 Racing Summit's John Daniels, and Daniels right now is definitely looking at growing in confidence, and he'll be hoping in that number 2 he can move his way closer to the top 3 come the end of today. Cooper Akers sits in 5th place there for Pennzoil Super Touring, ahead of Matt Shepka, with Kirby Enthusiasm Autosport's leading driver there right now leaping his way into 6th after a huge set of points last time out. And the 490 driver, we hoping he can carry on that momentum, and if so, he could be inside the top 5 come the end of today. He's only ahead of Zachary Leopold based on result countback, and well, Leopold right now, the Formula Lava driver there, taking what was that great win in the class last time out, and the number 72 driver right now, 9, he's still got to play catch up to Shepka. We then do have Zachary Bowman in 8th place there for Pennzoil Super Touring, 14 points behind. He's 6 ahead of Yellow Flag Motorsport's Mike D'Almeida, and then we do have behind the Canadian driver Major Bod Survive, who rounds off the Gamma top 10. Outside the top 10, best the rest is Connor Achitella, ahead of James Carr, with Damon Mitchell and Nicholas Sudik complete at the Gamma standings, and then coming to the Delta class standings. Last but not least in our Drivers' Championships, here we can see Tyler Long is currently the man to beat, and with an 85-point advantage at the moment, despite the non-start, it does mean he has used up his drop scores, and he cannot afford any more loss in points from this point onwards. Remember the fact, he had a very difficult time last time out earlier in the season. I do believe it was in round number 3 of the championship, where he's committed that as a drop score, and he has committed Watkins Glen. So from this point forward, every point matters most to the T0 Racer Ascent driver, and that's why we can expect expect him to be absolutely going for gold from the outset. However, he's not able to do so. Chris McDonald there will be very keen to catch up, and I do believe he was all fired up last time out. He went all the way from 27th in class to 4th place after one of his trackside waiters decided to give him cold gazpacho soup, and well, I'm not quite sure what the story about that is, but Smeg in hell, was he quick? And then going to Evan Clavio there in 3rd place, the Sim Racing grid driver, who we do owe an apology for. And the fact that we did say on the broadcast last time he'd yet to take a win this season, when in fact he had, and he did take his first and only win of the season in what was the first of 2 sprint races at the Charlotte Roval. But still, that apology put out there, we can see right now on 286 points, he's comfortably ahead of Jared Calnins, the privateer, who looked quite strong last time out at Watkins Glen, but could not quite deliver the ultimate result he wanted, which would have been the win. Ronald Mefo there in 5th place. That's 2nd place in the Delta class, really moving forward for Gasparilla Motorsport, now 4 points ahead of Carl Trost, and the T0 race of the Central, meanwhile, hot on his heels. JB Dejoux as well there on 197 points. He's 2 ahead of Zach Hudako, your winner last time out in what was the Delta class in some respects in terms of the number of points he brought on home, albeit not quite the same as the actual winner in the class, Angel Manila Soto, but he would have been happy with his performance in the Hatsune Miku machine for Good Smile Racing, but the privateer there right now, 9, is still more work to do. Forward Aorigi, keep your eyes on him. He's been looking very quick in the practice sessions to build up to today, and I wonder whether we're going to see a repeat of Okayama for Aorigi, albeit we'll be hoping that he can actually bring home his first Delta win of the season, because the CG driver right now had it all go wrong when it looks so right in Japan, but can he prove it to be the difference of the two here today in Canada? Carl Flannery sits in 10th place for Gasparilla Motorsport, looking for another win this season, round off the top 10 ahead of Austin Dunbar, who is best to rest in 11th ahead of Jason Lynn, with Mark Darnell, Adrian Fedorowski and Carl Murray all close knit together there in the run all the way through to 15th place. Corey Lobner sits in 16th, just ahead of Joseph Heath by the best part of 5 points. It's Gareth McAllister, Mitchell Richmeyer and Jason Breeder complete the top 20, and outside that top 20 sitting in 21st. And it's none other than Angel Cindes ahead of Jonathan Bradford, with Sean Gerd, Jerry Barber and Lewis Gilbert completing the run through to 25th. The Croc Promotions driver right now looking for a few more points for the United Kingdom, as is Spencer Clark behind him, and Marcel Thomas is only a further 4 adrift. Then we do have Andy Kosick in 28th, ahead of Kurt Smith and Nick Bader. And outside that top 30, Jalen Kuo, the Mid-Pack Mafia driver, who was looking very good in the early stages at Watkins Glen until everything seemed to backfire for the number 0 driver. And Zach Saunders is only now the best part of 9 points behind him. From the Japanese driver, it's then Jess Rikowski ahead of Thomas Fancock, who made his debut at last time out, and we look forward to plenty more from him today, with Kevin Johnson also making his debut and absolutely loving the battling out there in the number 24, and meanwhile ahead of Ryan Small, only a result countback, and then the last of those with points, Noah Namiark, Roger Shank and Logan Watton, and yet scoring any points this season, but here today is Aaron Lahr, and the same does apply there for none other than what is Angel Bonilla Soto, albeit the Mid-Pack Mafia driver taking that winning class, so therefore I do believe that might be a slight miscalculation there, albeit I wonder if perhaps the points do need to be updated there, and perhaps it's applying his drop scores at the moment, and then we do have Cameron DeMug, Marco Mangado, Noam Pasola, Patrick Rich, and Tim Driscoll, but that, ladies and gentlemen, is how the Delta standings stand after what is the best part of 5 rounds of racing. But then coming on to the Teams Championships, that we see here in the Oval Teams Championship, where's a lead in the way for Pennzoil Super Touring, as right now they hold on to that lead, and their gap, well, it's staying steady, but understandably they would like that gap to be a little bit greater, because Beaver and D's right now, they've got a growing problem behind them, and that is the pressure is going for Yellow Flag Motorsports, only 10 points behind. If Yellow Flag Motorsport are able to leap ahead for them today, well then Sim Racing Grid will be thinking, is it our opportunity to also get close to Beaver and D's? The Gamma team, of course, punching well above their weight, but Beaver and D's right now on 9, that every so often the heavyweights will arrive on the scene. But in 4th place, Sim Racing Grid right now broken away from Crop Promotions, but they do have the best part of 400 points to close down to the top 3, so they are in no man's land, and then you do have a very intense fight brewing for 5th place. Crop Promotions ahead of Breakfast for Dinner, with Kirby Enthusiasm Autosport there a further 40 points behind. CG sitting in 8th place there ahead of T0 Race of the Ascent, with Gator Racing completing the top 10, and that closest opened up a little bit by 56 points to T0 Racing Summit of best to rest in 11th place ahead of Gasparilla Motorsport, with Formula Llama in 13th ahead of Monster Energy Racing. 212 Racing sitting 15th ahead of Mid-Pack Mafia, and yet score any points this season. We've got Chasing Racing, Second Breakfast, Academy Sim Racing, and Problem Child Motorsports. As for the Delta Teams Championship, here we can see with the Delta points accumulated, T0 Race of Descent continue to lead, but Gator Racing are very close to them now. And Witzar Long absent last time out, they've really felt the absence of their leader man in the Delta class, and suddenly all that lead has been completely slashed. But Gator Racing therefore need to try and find a way to close down that gap a little bit more, because of course, round number 4 it all went wrong. Last time out it was a great recovery round, but they should be leading, they'll feel. And Gasparilla Motorsport as well, it did not quite go the way they wanted it to. Their pace was not the equivalent of Gator Racing, and therefore that gap between themselves and the second place team has opened up. Sim Racing Grid sit in 4th place there, right now quickly chasing down down the top three and breaking away for the rest of the field as led by CG. Then we do have Monster Energy Racing, 10 points behind the 5th place team, but ahead of 212 Racing, who brought home a good set of points last time, particularly for Adrian Fedorowski. And what we can see there right now is that 212 Racing are only 7 points ahead of Mid-Pack Mafia. In turn, QB Enthusiasm Autosport and Crop Promotions complete the Delta top 10, and Breakfast for Dinner and T0 Racing Summit complete those standings. But ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, that's our coverage of the standings, and it is time for us to make our way into qualifying. Who exactly is going to put it on pole? It is time for us to find out here at the Canadian Tire Motorsport Park. And so as qualifying gets underway, this is what we'll see. 10 minutes, a closed session, and everyone making their way out there as quickly as they humanly possibly can. But who exactly is going to put themselves out there on pole? Well, that's what we're here to find out as all drivers make their way out of the circuit. Wojciech Swirydowicz being one of them as he triples his way on around. And as he does so, well, what can we expect from Swirydowicz? What can we expect from all of them is the big question. And the answer is going to be, I think we can expect some plentiful performances where all drivers will be giving it their all. But the only thing they've got to keep in mind, as we do see our time town make its way up to the screen there, a little bit glitched, but finally coming on back, is the fact that qualifying is going to be of the essence. If they don't get it right in qualifying, they've got a lot of work to do for them when it comes to what will be going into those race conditions. And drivers making their way around right now, we see Sean Gerd as well doing a little bit of bobbing and weaving at the front end of the car, and that's understandably they're trying to get a bit more tyre temperature in. Remember, they've got this out lap plus 3 flying laps in which to try and get the job done, and after that, well, it's anybody's guess what will happen in the race. But who exactly did look impressive in practice? Well, of course, we always saw impressive performances in practice all the way through the season so far. And again for Michael Polasek for Yellow Flag Motorsport, as we're actually 2 alpha drivers who really are dictating the pace at the very front of the field. We do have a couple of debutants today, one name of which you'll remember is a returnee to the grid as of this round. And indeed, quite pertinently, making his 69th appearance in the series, having raced it in 9 seasons previously. And it is none other than what is, as we do try to find him, there he is. It is Ian Bertolucci as he makes one around here, and it's all looking nice for the sim racing grid driver, and we wish him the best of luck on his return to the grid today and his debut for what is season 16. Of course, raced in 9 seasons previously, 69 appearances as this round. Well, we look forward to seeing plenty more as the season goes on. And what he can do initially is he'll be racing in the Gamma class. It is number 51 Veloster. But we also do have a completely fresh face of the grid today, and joining the grid for the first time in the number 7, it is going to be none other than the Honda Civic Type R FK8 of Jacob Wilson. As we say hello to him as he makes his way around. Lovely livery on the car there. Definitely looking very much red tiger paint on the car. And well, we look forward to seeing what the privateer can do as he makes his first steps in the grid. And well, he was looking quite impressive in practice, pushing towards the top 10 of the Delta class. But as he makes his way onwards, what exactly can we expect in qualifying? Well, track position is absolutely key. But car-wise, it's very interesting because you would think that perhaps the Audis, such as that as Ferrado originally, are going to look very quick. We've got a very long backstretch. We've also got several long acceleration zones around here, and that's where the Audi does well. However, given the fact we have so many medium to high speed corners around here, well, that's where the Hondas and the Velosters are going to feel very strong. And it's particularly the Velosters we are expecting, given them jack-of-all-trades, middle ground nature, where they're not the master of anything, we are expecting the Velosters to be the stronger car. The Hyundai Elantra, of course, will always be a car that can be expected to do well as we look to the Veloster Bike de Almeida. However, the problem with the Elantra is the fact that it does have a very high rate of tyre degradation on its front tyres by default compared to its rivals, although the cooler conditions we are seeing here today may assist with that. And we'll just show you that weather on the right-hand side of your screen. And we do have an ambient of 18 degrees centigrade and a track temperature of 21 degrees centigrade, and therefore that may come to the hands of those in the Elantra, just giving them a little bit more of an operating window to work with over our sprint races. But either way, as the drivers all make their way around right now, we'll see what's to come of all them. As BMW Diamelda puts the initial pole time up there as a 25.497, but I suspect we're going to see plenty more laps of our drivers here, and that's going to be shattered very soon, as we do see Zachary Bowman making his way around in the Pennzoil Super Touring machine. As he does so, currently the 15th fastest of everybody, and he's going to be looking for a bit more time as Michael Polasek gets his first lap on the board. Well, as we said, he was going to raise the bar, and he does so, and he moves it now to 25.104. Can we expect a high 24 in this qualified session? My gut feeling says yes, we probably can. But as Polasek rolls his way down and around through the corners, right now Logan McKinzie a little bit further behind him, 3 tenths off, but right now definitely look as though the Pennzoil Super Touring driver is going to try and be the second best here today, try and beat Swirydowicz. That will be an achievement in itself. himself. Good that Polasek and Swirydowicz had already been the two who have been exchanging the pole times overall. Meanwhile, yet to get a lap on the board, Micah Hendricks here as he comes across that timing line. And as he does so, what's it going to be for his first lap? It's going to put him 18th for 26.351, so a decent lap there. But he's now going to be hoping for a little bit more as he makes his way onwards in the Lego Brick Machine, the Hyundai Veloster, will be his next lap for Croc Promotions. But as Swirydowicz comes across the timeline, we're going to get on board with one of our drivers very shortly, and I believe we are going to get on board with our debutant. We ride on board with Ian Bertolucci as he takes us around for a flying lap. So damming the brakes there, 100 meters per quarter apex to turn number 1, rolls the car and down, and as he does so, now make his way out to the right-hander and up the hill in towards turn number 2. Completely blind at the start, you have to brake there on the peak, brake at about 75 meters per quarter entry point, and down to 4th gear he goes, well flat out all the way through the left and in towards the right of turn number 3. Here onto the brakes once again as he rolls down the gearbox down to 3rd gear. Now make his way on out. Bertolucci right now rolling his way on through. Lovely line there, holding 3rd now back up to 4th, and now downhill in towards turn number 4. Get the car in the middle of the road and then scoop it in, completely blind as you turn in. You've got to have got your line correct on muscle memory. And now onto the brakes here, nice and late, going uphill into Moss Hairpin, down to 1st gear as he approaches the 2nd apex, and now back out here, letting the car run as wide as humanly possible, and rolling his way onto the back stretch. And at this point now, it's flat out every step of the way for Bertolucci, albeit as he makes his way down here, you'll notice he pulls the car into the right-hand side, and that is to shorten the run up towards the S's as much as possible at his final flying lap here. And while he has improved in the first sector, can he improve in the rest of the lap? The answer is going to be, well, in sector number 2 he has not improved. It's a poor run out the hairpin, but going in towards the S's now, rolling the car in, trail braking down to 4th gear at turn number 8 apex at long last, and now onto the brakes once again, dropping down the 3rd to turn number 9, and down to White's Bend here, snaps the car to left to open up the right-hander, and full throttle as he makes way through, get the front right tyre to pull the car around, and as he does so for Bertolucci, does he go any higher? And the answer is going to be no, he does not. He stays 5th, 2nd fastest of the Gabbers. And can anybody else get on top of that? Because Mike Almeida is currently the fastest Gamut in 3rd overall. That could be a season best qualifying performance. Meanwhile, 3rd hour originally. Well, is this going to be a repeat of Okayama here? He's going to put it on pole in the Delta class at this rate, just ahead of Kyle Flannery. Jason Breen as well. He's really doing well in Delta here in the qualifying. And, well, Evan Clavio's not too far behind here. So right now, we've got some big names putting themselves right back up there in the Delta class. But also, we've got some names we haven't talked about for some time. Really impressive. Jason Breen's perhaps the biggest surprise of them all in a way. That's not to belittle him, just for the simple reason we have not seen that stronger qualifying performance from him so far this season. Shepka jumps up to 10th right at the end of his qualifying session. So Matt Shepka there for Kirby Enthusiasm Autosports, or CYEA. He's looking very quick, and meanwhile, what can anybody else do? Well, James Carr makes his way out the final quarter, runs a bit wide. That might have just invalidated what he was doing, because he was on for a personal best. And the answer is yes, it was invalidated. Carr will not be going any further up the order because of his mistake. Croc Promotions Micah Hendricks, meanwhile, he's not had a good run out of the previous laps. He's currently 1.3 seconds down, but he does halve his deficit to pole position, but that's still 7.5 tenths at 25.726. That is going to be 18th at best. Hendricks has got a lot of work to do in the race. He's not giving himself an easy job here to do early doors today, as meanwhile, we've still got 2.5 minutes left on the clock, and we've still got a few laps to come. Now, in terms of penalties, we do have a pit lane start, I do believe, for Damon Mitchell, and that will be for changing his car once again. I believe he's changed his car every round this season, just to mix things up and keep things fresh. He's enjoyed himself out there, is David Mitchell, so you'll see him start from the pit lane, and I do believe he is running a curve at the Frog livery. We'll see if we can catch that later on in today's broadcast. Gareth McAllister comes across that timeline. He moves to 32nd there. What is 14th for your Deltas on a 26.635. Spencer Clark makes his way through. And the CYEA driver now makes his way in his Honda through the last 2 corners. And as he does so, where's he going to go? He's currently 37th fastest, and he's only ahead of Barber, Leader, and Johnson for those who put valid lap times in. We've got a few drivers who've yet to set a valid lap, and I don't think will by the end of this session. But Clark comes across the line, and he jumps to 35th there at 26.847, so jumps ahead of Hidako, and is just behind Joseph Heath. Jason Lynn, meanwhile, the official photographer for this series, and a huge thank you to him for all the brilliant photography he does, including all the thumbnails you do see and all the intro images. Indeed, an absolutely talented man, no doubt about that, for Glass and Steel photography and design. And as he rolls his way through turns 8, 9 and in towards 10, what's it going to be this time for Lynn? Can he get himself from the very last row of valid qualifiers? Can he get himself a bit further up the order? He had a very good middle sector, but in the end, it's not enough to move him into the top 30, but it does put him just ahead of Rich Meyer into 37th place. So for Jason Lynn, that is it in his qualifying session, ladies and gentlemen. And well, with 1 minute and 10 left on the clock, As Lynn toes his way back to the pit lane, well, we are going to see a couple of drivers out there right now just keeping the adrenaline and the blood flowing. Bearing in mind, of course, the fact when we do strike 10 minutes on the clock, we immediately end the qualifying session. There is no overtime in this session because we do use a heat race format here today, and that does mean we'll be making our way forward. So everyone's got to get their job done within the 10 minutes. But it looks like everyone who is going to do their job is going to get it done, and those who have not set times. Kurt Smith, who does have a qualifying ban due to penalty points picked up from Watkins Glen. Also Damon Mitchell with his pit lane start. Zach Saunders as well has not set a time, nor has Jacob Wilson on his debut. And nor has Aaron Last. They'll be all starting from the very back of the grid. But I wonder there, where particularly for Jacob Wilson, it might be a decision to start from the back of the grid just to get himself a bit more acquainted, particularly when you're brand new to such a huge grid and a series stapled with so much history and so many rivalries between drivers. Sometimes it's better to start from the back and just learn as you go. And, well, particularly if you're low on experience as well, racing in such an intense league format. But then again, we don't know enough about Jacob Wilson to say whether that's the reason he's doing it. We'll just give you potential reasons as to why. But as we do see Hendricks bringing his time around the circuit to a close, well, it's perfect timing because he comes to line. It's time to make our way to the grid, ladies and gentlemen, and see how they all line up for the purposes of the first of our two races here today at the Canadian Tire Motorsports Park. So as they all make their way to the grid, this is how our drivers will line up for race number 1 of the day. It is Michael Polasek who finds himself on pole position for Yellow Flag Motorsport, returning to pole after he wasn't allowed to take it, of course, at Watkins Glen. But he does so by a 10th in the end over breakfast for dinners Wojciech Swirydowicz. The rivalry between these two, it continues to go on. On row number 2, Logan McKinzie was a further 2 attempts behind. The Pennzoil Super Touring driver keeping up that reputation of being what is Mr. Third Fastest, as we do see the wind really blowing the trees around in the background there. My goodness, I know there's a running joke down the pit lane earlier today about the fact we're seeing hurricane level winds here, but I didn't think that was a reality there, and the fact we are seeing some very strong winds. Either way, it was a very strong gust of wind that pushed Mike Almeida all the way to Gamma pole position for Yellow Flag Motorsport, and to be fair, also a demonstration of his brilliant talents inside the Canadian Hyundai Veloster. He'll then be joined behind on row number 3 by Francois Schinck for Kirby Enthusiasm Autosport and Ian Bertolucci, who returns to the grid today, and immediately the Brazilian driver there putting himself second fast at the Gammas. Well done to him for the Sim Racing grid. He was ahead of his teammate of Dan McFarlane. I'll be grateful to have a teammate alongside him inside the top 10, but won't appreciate the fact he's been out-qualified by him straight away. But the American driver will have none other than Matthew Melior, who returns to the grid for CHG. Great to see him back today and back in 8th place. We have third hour originally taking a Delta pole position. This is the second time he's done it this season in qualifying. Now, can he convert it to that maiden Delta win? We will see for CHG, just ahead of Matthew Shepka for Kirby Enthusiasm Autosport, who survived qualifying to finish inside the top 10. A brilliant effort from him. Now he's got to try and capitalise on that as we go green flag racing. Behind them on row number 6 is going to be Carl Flannery there for Gasparilla Motorsport, who knows he's got the pressure. Started second in the Delta class, so trying to keep with third out originally, particularly when he's got John Lauzon alongside him. The Beaver and D's driver wants to move forward, but out qualifying Raymond Tew intriguingly, by the best part there of only 100th that. Conrad Stella joins him on what will be that 7th round grid for Yellow Flag Motorsport, and then behind it will be an all Delta row number 8. These Delta drivers really coming forward as the season has gone on. Jason Breen with a season best qualifying points there for Sim Racing Grid, and he's in the company of his teammate Evan Clavio. Well done to the pair. They're going to be excited for what lays ahead. John Daniel starts this one in 17th for T0 Racing Summit, and he will be in the company there of Micah Hendricks. The Croc Promotion driver struggling in qualifying, and therefore has got all the work to do from the 9th row of the grid, and completing a top 20 is going to be none other than Zachary Bowman for Pennzoil Super Touring and Zachary Leopold for Formula Llama, and these two seem to be absolutely joined at the hip on the grid whenever we see them together. And I can tell you one thing, ladies and gentlemen, it's not because they're just both called Zachary, although at this point I get the feeling right now they'll be feeling it's the way in the battle of Zachary supremacy. Then starting 21st, it's going to be Major Mod Survive, the privateer, just ahead of James Carr. Well, a solid effort from James Carr there, starting in what will be for the Gammas, none other than 12th, and he's just going to be ahead for the breakfast dinner team of none other than Gator Racing's Chris McDonald, who starts 5th today in the Delta class, which he won't be upset about the thought of starting 5th. What he will be upset about is the fact there's such a gap to the guys in front of him in the Deltas. But he's then surrounded by Deltas behind, because we have Austin Dunbar starting 24th, just ahead of Jared Calnins and Sean Gurd. And then behind the Gasparilla Motorsport driver on the 14th row of the grid, it's Mark Darnell for Gator Racing and none other than Jonathan Bradford, the privateer. 29th, Ronald Meffel for Gasparilla Motorsport. Can he improve upon that qualifying points? Because we expect him to be very quick over race distance. He's got the company of Tyler Long there, who starts 30th. Intriguing, the T0 Racing Ascent driver. More missing a week of racing has definitely seemed to have dulled his pace a little bit, unless he's just not had a happy day here at Motorsport, or perhaps it's not a circuit that he enjoys. But starting 30th there, he's got a lot of work to do, starting from 12th in the class. Meanwhile, starting 31st, It's going to be his teammate of Carl Troche, just ahead of Gareth McAllister, with Monster Energy Racing's driver there, ahead of JB Dejoux, and none other than Joseph Heath. Then starting on the 18th row of the grid, it is going to be Spencer Clark for Kirby Enthusiasts of Autosport and Zach Hidalgo, with Jason Lynn and Mitchell Richmeyer on row 19. And behind the Gator Racing and Monster Energy Racing drivers, it's going to be Richmeyer's teammate of Jeremy Barber, and then the privateer of Kevin Johnson. Outside the top 40, not setting valid laps, all these drivers, it will be Damon Mitchell who starts in the pit lane for Croc Promotions, and then we will have Zach Saunders, the Japanese driver there, started 42nd, ahead of none other than Kurt Smith, with his qualifying ban for breakfast for dinner, and Aaron Lahr. And then last on this grid, starting 45th on his debut, is going to be Jacob Wilson, who takes his first steps into the AlphaTouring Challenge. Well, ladies and gentlemen, the grid is set. It's time to go green flag racing, and without further ado, the lights go on, the revs rise. For the first time here today in round number 6 of the championship, it is going to be lights out and away we go here for 25 minutes of racing as they all get away. But look at this, Wojciech Swirydowicz at a better start beats on the outside versus Polasek, so therefore it's not going to be as straightforward as you'd like it to be as he tries to roll the way down the hill. Now coming through in towards turn number 2. All the cars safely through for the first couple of corners. It would seem as we look to the blimp camera, give you the more distant shot here as all that field gradually staggers its way. 3-4 wide there between a couple of drivers, but they all back off now. 9 motion go 2 wide through turn number 2, coming all the way down. But as they do, everyone is safely on through the opening couple of corners. Well done to everyone for doing that. And now it starts to tighten up that even bit more as they make the way through turn number 3 up towards 4. But we can see there Francois Schink leading ahead of Ian Bertolucci in the fight for 4th, and Bertolucci has jumped with Dan McFarlane, as meanwhile we've had a very slow start for our Gamma pole sitter, who's dropped a long way back, so it's gone very backwards to them. Meanwhile for these drivers, it's all gone forwards, and Gamma pole sitter of none other than what was, I do believe, John Daniels falling a little bit further back because they make the way on down, but still more to come between these drivers as they get themselves set. In fact, it wasn't Daniels on pole now, that my memory serves me correctly. Is meanwhile hold the fault on that. That's going to be to the barrier there for one of our drivers. That's Carl Flannery, I think, as the car's rolled on around, but in the end he's got it going again. But as he does so, what exactly has happened to Carl Flannery? Well, we'll get an understanding shortly. We're going to need a replay of that. But meanwhile, all these drivers go towards the end of the open lap. They've got plenty of laps they can put in here today. And right now, after one lap of racing, well, Michael Polasek right now trying to break away. But across that timeline he goes, and here's Polasek who leads ahead of Wojciech Swirydowicz. Then it'll be Logan McKinzie in 3rd, ahead of Francois Schink. Ian Bertolucci, leader of the Gammas, sits in 5th, ahead of Dan McFarlane. The 2 drivers there for Sim Racing Grid have made some great progress since the start. Matthew Meliel sits in 7th, ahead of Matt Shepka. He's your 3rd place Gamma driver, ahead of your Delta leader, Fred Alricci. He'll be hoping the rain does not arrive today, and therefore it doesn't stop him from making this win finally happen. John Lauzon sits in 10th, ahead of Mike De Almeida. And then we do have Raymond Tew in 12th, ahead of John Daniels, with Evan Clavio currently 14th, just missing out on the top 13 reverse grid pole position. He's currently the 2nd of your Delta drivers, and then it's Connor Achitella and Jason Breen who all run together at the moment. But as Breen sits there at the moment, rolling his way on through, all 9 is still a bit of time in this race, so therefore he doesn't have to put too much pressure on himself straight away as all these drivers roll their way on through the corners. But Mike De Almeida, of course, your Gamma pole sitter, well, what exactly has gone wrong for him? It has been a poor start for De Almeida, and therefore he's dropped all the way down from what was full place in the grid all the way back to 5th, well, back to 5th in the class, but 11th overall, we should say. And right now, it is not looking right for De Almeida, but hopefully he can make things right as time goes on. See what we can do about that as all these drivers make the way up the back straight. But as they do, looking further back, we do look to Austin Dunbar, who is bringing Jared Kalnins along with him for the ride here. And Dunbar right now, well, currently the 50-year Delta driver here. He's had a solid start to his race. I think you'll be very happy with how things have gone. Albeit he's still got a bit more work to do as they roll the way in towards the S's this time around. But further back, well, of course, we can always expect fights in the Delta class, because further back in it, this is going to be Zach Hidalgo versus Spencer Clark, and in the end, Hidalgo is going to go outside to inside here as they now make the way in towards White's Bend. And meanwhile, Mitchell Richmond and Jeremy Barber are just watching this from behind and thinking about what they can do to get involved. Well, that's going to be a very big run wide there for Jeremy Barber. That's going to cost him momentum, and well, his delivery's on time here, because for Joseph Heath, he looks at the inside of the DHL machine, and he will take that 17th place off of Barber in Delta as quick as that. But now going up towards what will be turn number 2. These drivers rolling the way over the rise, and as they do, Kevin Johnson a little bit further back. But meanwhile, from them, we look all the way back into the middle of the top 20, and we can see here James Carr and Zachary Bowman together, and Zachary Leopold, who was with him, has fallen a bit further back. Major Ron Savai has split the 2 Zacharys, but meanwhile Carr is under a bit of pressure as we look back from the rear of him, poke up the inside there from Bowman potentially, or at least a look, but in the end it was just a look, it was nothing more than that, and in the end James Carr just holding his line. Now Matt Shepka did have an off track at the hairpin only moments ago, so he's dropped down the order from what was none other than 9th place, dropping down to 13th, we do believe, as in fact we do look to Shepka being mauled here a little bit by other drivers. as that's going to be John Daniels gradually make his way on through. But as we do see there, what's going to be almost a free wide in towards the next braking zone. Well, Mike Almeida up the inside of Fred Ridgely. Raymond Tew also coming through. Tew wants Ridgely out the way. He needs to chase down De Almeida here. Does Tew if he wants to be extending his Gamma Championship lead, particularly when Dan McFarlane is ahead of him right now, the second place man in the Gamma Championship, well and comfortably ahead and several places up the road. So therefore some big points could be coming the way of McFarlane in this race. But of course there's 2 races today rather than 1. So therefore Tew does get an opportunity to try and make the work of McFarlane undone in race number 2 if he can't do it here in race number 1. But that's a bit of a tongue twister there as they come over the rise. 5 minutes of this race complete, still plenty more laps to come. And right now for Raymond Tew, it's all looking quite comfortable. But looking back to Zachary Bowman here, well, that's going to be side by side with Jason Breen. Breen on the outside, going up towards turn at number 3. He decides to back off there before they do get to Quebec corner. And well, I think Breen wanted the move, and Bowman right now are really not in a happy place, but they're all queuing up on each other here. As the Hot Wheels machine major mod survive goes defensive. Formula Lama Audi of Leopold trying to go outside to inside. Bit of a run deep there. That's always free wide for Breen. In fact, it was free wide, and now here we go. Breen versus Leopold. Leopold trying to go all the way around the outside. That's not going to be easy. He's going to try and look for it here on the corner exit, and the answer is he will have all the space to work with. The onboard showed you it, and in here it's a poor run out the corner from Breen, and now here comes Chris McDonald. And McDonald right now is absolutely going to be on the attack here. No, that's third place in the Delta class right in front of him. But can he find a way into it, because he's bringing none other. And it'll be Austin Dunbar, who's about 7.5 tenths back, and he won't Dunbar getting any closer than this. As they make the way in towards that break, it's over turn number 8, where it's a look around the outside there from the Honda Civic driver of McDonald. But Breen there goes defensive. And Jason Breen right now really struggling in that Elantra. I suspect it might be a little bit of early tyre temperature and early degradation. It just started to come in and halt him a little bit. He'll need to try and get those tyres cooled down, if so, because otherwise he might be struggling as this race goes on. It may only be a 25-minute race, but still tyres are very important. And meanwhile, this is very important as well. Mike Almeida, John Lauzon are Raymond Tew together. And the 2 Beaver D's drivers here trying to rob the Yellow Flag Motorsport driver of what be that spot on the Gamma podium. Well, Lauzon's going to get on the inside, but in the end, it's not going to work there, because now it turns from a left-hander into a right-hander. And we can see Tew now looking up the inside of his own teammate here. And Lauzon gives him all the space and time of day, giving so much real estate there to work with. I think it was a bit excessive, perhaps. And I think John Lauzon right now is going to look behind him and realise what he's actually done is brought Al Ridgely, Daniels, Shepka, and Clavio hot onto their heels, and they all make the way rolling up towards what will be at Moss Bend. But as they do, well, right now you can see Lauzon having to go absolutely defensive, and Al Ridgely as well does have Daniels and Shepka closer behind. As Evan Clavio here is being mauled around the outside by Conrad Agitella. Wait a minute, did Agitella just go all the way around the outside at Moss Hairpin? If so, that's a brave move, and that's not an easy one to make stick. We're going to need to get a replay of that if we can, because that's an incredibly impressive move there. And well, for what is Agitella right now, he is showing no signs of holding back whatsoever. But meanwhile, as we do get ready to hold back some time and take a look back some moments from earlier in the race, well, Evan Clavio right now still fighting. Here's James Carr, goes around the outside and rolling the way through. And well, he's going to be on the inside. Just hold up a second. Who's that off the road? Is that Shepka? That is Shepka. Shepka's taking another trip to the grass. And well, in the end, he takes the rallycross line to rejoin. That's going to send him even further down the order. Shepka right now finding the grass here at Canada, definitely alluring. And well, they say don't go outside and touch grass here, but he's definitely touching it as they make the way in towards turn number 1. And right now, Jason Breen up the inside there, but Shepka holds him behind as Breen rubs against the wall. That's going to bring Chris McDonald with a lot of momentum here. As McDonald right now definitely thinking about the move on the inside. Breen the end can't shut the door in his face. We're on the way down the hill, and in the end, McDonald will not quite get it done, or does he? Yes, he does, as Breenian has to lift off, as otherwise he was going to be going to the grass there and doing a Shepka. And as they roll the way through turn number 3, Chris McDonald does take third place in the Delta class, but Breen, Dunbar counties, and also Wes Darnell are all right there with him. So therefore, right now, McDonald's got to try and get the pace down here and make the break before it's too late. Before it's too late for us to take a look back in time, we're going to take a look back at some moments early on the race, ladies and gentlemen. Starts off with Shepka's expedition on lap number 3. So this was Matt Shepka having a bit of a moment as he made his way in towards Moss Bend. He was comfortably at this time in 8th place, and third of the Gammas. Just carried too much speed and went to... Oh my goodness! And Fred Ridgely there almost lost it with him. So a bit of hypnosis there for Ridgely. Understandably, I would imagine that simply it was one of the situations where he watched the car in front and thought, well, if he's going deep, I'm going to follow him as well. You do that very easily, and Shepka losing all those places gradually in terms of momentum. But then after that, what exactly went wrong for him a bit later? This was on lap number 5. And this is where it went even more wrong. This was in the run all the way in towards what was the S's, went in, slid loose on the rear, and then arrested the car and just straightened it out and realised he was never going to make the corner and decided just to power through and cut the apex at turn number 9. I suspect there as well, but he having to serve an automated slowdown afterwards for that expedition. But then we take a look at this move by Connor Achitella on Evan Clavio. This is an incredible move around the outside of Moss Hairpin. So this was the run down the hill, and the yellow flag motorsport driver there in the Veloster in gold, and this was definitely a golden textbook move all the way around the outside, and in the end, well, look at that. Now, that is commitment. To be fair to him, Clavio did back off on the inside. I think Clavio was a bit blindsided by being so close to Shepka, and he also respected the fact that Achitella was there. So you had to make two to work at any move here at Mosport. But that's a brave move from Achitella. Many would not do it, but the Gamma driver there definitely earning the gold star for that one as we head back to your live racing. And well, as we come on back, still plenty more races to come, ladies and gentlemen, as we do have the best part of what is 15 minutes or so left in this race. But at the very front of the field, Michael Polasek right now is starting to pull away. The gap stand at the best part of a second now versus Swirydowicz. Swirydowicz trying to keep him honest, but we are seeing what is the difference of the two machines here in terms of the Veloster versus the Honda, where the Veloster just has a little bit more punch in the straights compared to the Honda that's got a slight greater strength in what is the corners. And as these drivers roll their way onto lap number 8, I think that's how Swirydowicz is gaining the time, because sector time wise it is looking as though effectively Polasek is stronger towards the end of the lap, whereas Swirydowicz is stronger towards the start of the lap. It really is a lap of two halves, but the Honda just doesn't quite have it. As Logan McKinzie, he's probably figured here about how he can get involved, and Francois Schink is not too far behind either, 2 seconds further adrift. But as they all continue to look at each other, these alphas, and get ready to fight, there's plenty more fighting going on in the Gamma class here, because we do have Achitella fighting with Bowman. Bowman right now on the back of him here, and Zachary Bowman has made some steady progress. He's left Zachary Leopold behind. Evan Clavio there just behind the second of the Deltas watching this and probably thinking to himself, okay, ideally I need to get after Ridgely, Al Ridgely that is, but I don't think he's going to be able to do it, as we see a bit of a move there. That's Bowman going all in, and he goes very tight to Apex, bounce the curb. Meanwhile, James Carr there makes a complete hash brown of what was Moss Hairpin, and as a result, it's not going to be breakfast or dinner for him right now. It is definitely going to be a breakfast. He did enjoy in that one, because in that instant, well, he's lost his place, and now here comes Connor Achitella trying to make a move of it as well. They're going to be 3 wide. Here comes Clavio looking around the outside. Now, does Evan Clavio stick it in? Does he pressure the two Gamma drivers to take a much tighter entry line, or does he back off? There's your answer. He has to back off, because Carl comes across him, and well, the lunch driver there not having the pace to be able to maintain that 3 wide, given the fact he's got Major Mod Survive right behind him thinking about moves as well. But Carl and Achitella still 2 wide as they come through 9 and in towards 10, and in the end it is going to be James Carr who leaps ahead there as they roll the way out the corner, and now down towards what will be turn number 1 again, and James Carr does hold off Achitella, but Zachary Bowman clearly clears him as they get ready for the halfway points of this race. Looking back to Jason Breen, he's still on the back of Chris McDonald here, Austin DeMartin, Jared Calnins close behind. We ride on board here with Calnins. He takes you on towards turn number 2, and the number 20 driver here, the privateer in what is the Hyundai livery machine, the official Hyundai Motorsport TCR machine. Well, right now Calnin's hoping there's going to be a way in here. I don't think there is going to be, as he goes a bit deep. Dunbar does the same in his Audi RS3. Both of them struggling with a little bit of understeer, and this is where the tyre degradation is starting to build. Is we're seeing tries now go deep at these sweeping bends. It is not easy. The front tyre's really taking a beating here, and all that information we did see at the start really coming through as we see the wipers on there for Calnins. There's no rain, however, on the camera. I suspect that is just to clear some debris that's got onto the windshield and give himself the best possible forward visibility. Indeed, rain on the cars, there is a low risk of it as I'm to understand it, but right now it's just cloud and a bit of sunshine, although it is looking very dark out there. You'd be forgiven for thinking there's a risk of rain at any moment in time. And down this back straight they go, and as they do, Calnins, currently the 6th place Delta driver, is not really able to get more involved. Micah Hendricks, meanwhile, we haven't really talked about him since the start of the race, and in fact Hendricks has gone a long way backwards from what was that top 20 start. He's down in 27th here, makes his way on past JB DeJu for 27th place, and now his next target is going to be Gareth McAllister, as, hold up a second, we have lost Jason Breen. Jason Breen has been towed to the pits. I'm not quite sure why, but I can tell you one thing for Jason Breen, the man who looks so impressive in qualifying in Delta, that's going to be heartbreak. I wonder if there's been a technical issue for Breen's car and he's had to pull off circuit and tow, because right now there's no indication he's been involved in an instant. He's just simply pulled off the circuit. I think it has broken down the 217, and we hope to see him back on the grid in short order. But for Jason Breen, that is not the way he's wanted to go when he was, of course, his best result of the season. But meanwhile, We do look to Zachary Leopold holding off Matt Shepka in the Formula Llama driver right now. Well, definitely finding himself absolutely thick in the fighting with the number, what he is at 490, but the 72 holding on. We do know this Audi, it really is one of those cars. It goes very well at some circuits, but it struggles at others, and also it is a very finicky car to get right because of how tight the gear ratios are, and whilst they can be tuned to a degree, given this an open setup series, the Audis always do have what is the problem. At lower speed corners, they are either right at the top end of a gear or in the bottom end of another gear. They don't quite have the comfort factor of being able to hold right in the middle of the rev range compared to, say, the Honda or the Veloster or even the Elantra. But down this back stretch you go, and as you can see, Leopold right now just being able to pull away here. He doesn't have the turn major Monster White in front because Monster White is 1.1 seconds up the road, so therefore that's the Audi just able to pull away from the Honda Shepka. That's the difference between the two machines on the straights there. That's where the Audi really has invested all of its talents. As they get ready to complete this lap, we'll look a bit further up the order. We look to Ian Bertolucci. And we can see the Brazilian driver right now leading the Gamma class. He has dropped Dan McFarlane, his teammate, to a small degree, but Matthew Melior squeezes his way between the two. And right now, Melior here hoping for CHG that he's going to be able to perhaps get into the top 5. Albeit Dan McFarlane is definitely keeping the Audi driver honest. And well, here's an example of an Audi driver who's definitely battling upstream of the car, but he's doing a great job of it in the number 12. We can't blame him for it. And Melior has made his way onto this grid several times this season, really shown what he can do in that Audi amongst the Alphas. And what he's hoping here today, if he can't take what will be the win in the Alpha and overall category in race number 1, he might be able to, with the aid of the top 13 inverted grid, be able to spring a surprise for us in race number 2, I suspect. We'll see what he's going to be able to do about that. Now, looking a bit further down the order, we need to look to the Kermit the Frog delivery machine that started from the pit lane there. We promised you we'd get you some footage of it. There it is. And it's none other than David Mitchell here as he rolls his way on down and around the circuit. And, well, ladies and gentlemen, that is an absolutely riveting livery, I must say. It does not make me want to commit TCR crimes whatsoever. And, well, I can tell you one thing right now. I can't do a Kermit the Frog impression. I was asked to for the purposes of today's broadcast, but unfortunately I can't. I'll damage my vocal cords. I'll see if I can work on it. But right now, David Mitchell, well, it may be a car and a livery that only perhaps certain enthusiasts can love, but I can tell you one thing right now, we love to see him out there riding in it, and when he roars his way on through, chased after Jonathan Bradford, Tyler Long and Sean Gurd, well, I can imagine right now that he's not going to be leaving a frog in his throat. It's going to be a frog in the throat for everyone else who battles his way past at this point. But still, frog puns aside here before, unfortunately, I find a way to somehow segue a tadpole into this. I'm not quite sure how at the moment. Well, as we do look a bit further up the road, there's been a drop down the order for Francois Schink. And Francois Schink, in fact, I think has just had to be towed to the pits. What's happened to Francois Schink? We're going to get a quick replay to explain. In fact, we've got a couple of incidents to explain. Also one for Jeremy Barber. Here we go, a trip back in time, ladies and gentlemen. So here we come to Jeremy Barber by his lonesome Monster Energy Racing. Went into turn number 2. I suspect he's going to go deep here. Brakes on, brakes quite late over the bump, and indeed goes wide, carries on wide, the tyre barrier approaches, and he grinds to it, and he will grind to a halt. That'll be front suspension damage, unfortunately, for Jeremy Barber. Then we had this for Francois Schink going on to lap number 12, the Kirby Enthusiasm Autosport driver. Plenty of enthusiasm through turn number 1. Got it out. Oh, no, he did not get it right on exit, and in the end, to the barrier, he could not straighten it out. And they normally say in a front engine front wheel drive touring car, when it starts to slide loose, power down, straighten the steering wheel as quickly as you can. Unfortunately, couldn't quite get that adage to done, and in the end, it was into the barrier, and it was all said and done for Francois Schink. That was his race in bits as we come back to your live racing. And, well, an unfortunate one there for was our Alpha driver, who's now relegated out of the order, and suddenly Mike Almeida moving up into 7th place here. But more importantly for him, the 3rd place Gamma driver right now, knowing he's got a bit of a gap to Raymond Tew and John Lauzon, who have not been able to find a way past him. They fought with him earlier on, but since then, they have not been able to clear the man for Yellow Flag Motorsport, who's gained the upper hand on them. So it does seem as though it's been a tale of two halves, and I wonder if Tew and Lauzon are now nursing tyre issues, and therefore just wanting to hold back a little bit. James Carr, meanwhile, he's currently in 13th place in the highly coveted 13th place. He goes a bit deep there coming out of turn number 2, and around the outside looks at Chatella. It's not going to work there, and right now the 55 driver here looking left, looking right, poking, probing, finding every way he can. Or is he going to be able to go around the outside here at turn number 4? This is going to be brave to do it here, but it's a good way to do it if you can get full commitment for yourself and your rival on your inside, not to go any too wide, and in the end he does do so. And Chatella makes the move count up into 13th, but now James Carr will be drag racing him all the way out to Moss Bend and up towards the S's. Down what will be the Andretti straightaway they go, and as they do, Evan Clavio Not too far behind the second of your Delta drivers. I can imagine that Clavio in the 187 right now, he would like to finish in 13th himself to give himself the opportunity to take what would be another Delta win. His second Delta win of the season, although intriguingly it would mean he's only picked up Delta wins in the sprint races so far this season, and he's never been a Delta race winner. How in the feature race that is. But meanwhile, that full process and statistics aside, right now Agitella, if he can make this stick, he's going to have a real big opportunity for what will be some huge points in race number 2 of the day. And well, this would definitely arrest what's been a bit of a challenging day so far for many Gamma drivers, including himself. When qualifying, they've just been shaken up a little bit, and most what has served to do that, it really has been, if you exclude the Alphas here today, we have seen in both Gamma and also in Delta some names we haven't typically seen before really leading the way in qualifying, and therefore it could be at this point as we go into the second half of the season with this round, we could be starting to see doorways open and the championship's being turned upside down. But still, that's just theory. That could be one of the stories of this season goes on, as we briefly did have. Was a driver running wide there. We didn't quite catch who that was, but we look back here to a brief moment for Sean Good, who's got Tyler Long behind. And well, Tyler Long, the reason why we wanted to look back here, he is still struggling this long. He is not making progress. He started at the bottom end of the top 30. He is still there in 29th. The 11th of the Deltas right now, which are for Bradford right behind him. This is not where Long wants to be whatsoever, and he can't afford a drop score anymore. He already has 2 scores that he would consider to be drops. He does have an 85-point lead, but how quickly that lead can come down, particularly if a Delta drive finishes inside the top 15. Remember, they score points based on overall finishing position, first and foremost, and then there are bonus points for the Delta and the Gamma classes for things such as finishing on the podium and the fastest lap in class. So therefore, for Tyler Long right now, an 85-point advantage when you're 29th, and Fred Al-Rishi, for example, is all the way up in 10th. That is going to be eviscerated within a single race, let alone 2 races, and that's what he's got to be worried about here, is the fact that advantage can go. One of the good things is, of course, is that Al-Rishi is not his closest rival in the championship. Instead, his closest rivals would be Chris McDonald and Evan Clavio, of which McDonald himself is in 19th, so that's not as big of an impact, but Clavio in 14th, it definitely is one. But and that's just one of the thought processes we do have there with regards to what's going on. As meanwhile, looking to the back of the field, Spencer Clark and Carl Flannery, the 2 Honda drivers together. And there you can see Kevin Johnson, who's carried on. Good to see him out there right now. The very colourful livery machine, the Grim Machine, who's chasing after Flannery and Clark. But he's had an off-track quite recently at what was turn number 5. And that's just caused him to fall out of that battle to a small degree. But as we see them make the way onwards, meanwhile, Damon Mitchell makes another place up there, now up into 25th versus Gareth McAllister. Albeit, is he going to be up into 25th because McAllister coming back at him here into turn number 4. Too wide on down the hill, but surely at this point, ooh, that was very close there, and there's an example of what happens when understeer creeps in for the inside car at turn number 4, and thankfully they just touched briefly, but both drivers there with the slightest of taps, nothing went wrong. If there'd been a bit more of a tap, I think we would have seen Mitchell on around and McAllister probably following him into a barrier with it, because once 2 cars get hooked there at turn number 4, it's very hard for them, even in closed wheel machines, it's very hard for them to come unhooked to each other, just simply because of the way the momentum shapes out. But speaking of them shaping things out, meanwhile, up to the front of the field. And right now, he's definitely putting all the shapes together here for Michael Polasek, because Wojciech Swirydowicz, 1.3 seconds behind, is not closing. The gap is just tiptoeing into the favour of Polasek, Swirydowicz, and then McKinzie a bit further behind. All these drivers make the way onwards. Well, meanwhile, we've had a bit of an incident for JB Dejoux, who's dropped a long way back. He's just parked up there. Where on earth is that? And that is on the exit of turn number 8. That's the runoff area there for JB Dejoux. And he's letting everybody all go in the end, but something's broken on the car. Can we get a quick replay to understand? And the answer is yes, we can. And this is what's happened only months ago to JB Dejoux. So he was making his way on down the Marandretti straightaway. Tucked in behind there was McAllister. Went into the braking zone and just went straight on. Brakes on there. I wonder if that's a hardware failure inside the car. If the steering's perhaps gone. Alternatively, a brake failure, and he just had to get the car stopped before that brake failure's got any worse. But just sat there. Back to your live pictures we go, ladies and gentlemen. And Waz, we're doing good time as well, because we have not got long left on this race now. Indeed, only 2.5 minutes left on the clock. Plenty of fighting thus far. More fighting to come here. Perfect time to come back, as that's elbows out, as that's going to be Melio getting on past Bertolucci. But that contact, here comes down the far lane, trying to go around the outside of his teammate here. And well, right now it's still war, it's still racing grid, but it's going to be down towards turn 1 they go. 2 more laps remaining, as Melio immediately gives the place back there, realising what he's done. Great sportsmanship being shown from Melio. It was just a bit too firm, a bit of contact. And well, but Follow Bertolucci right now, going too wide into turn number 2. Bertolucci wants this win in the Gamma class. He wants to return to the grid and say, I've taken a win on my first race back on the grid. But Mavale takes off here right now. Well, I think the Brazilian driver here is much be grateful for Melio giving the place back. I think he'll be a bit annoyed at the fact it's actually cost him the Gamma lead. And understandably, Dan McFarlane's not going to be saying, well, I'll give you the place back, Ian, unless he decides to right at the finish here. Perhaps you never know. There could be that element at the finish, given the two teammates will probably be on the radio to each other. But right now, I think Dan McFarlane, his priority is he needs this win to make sure that he closes down your Gamma Championship leader of Raymond to you. So therefore, there's a lot of pressure on this one between two teammates and also the wider Gamma standings. But here they go, making the way down the back straight here. And, well, we're still on board with Bertolucci in the 51. Face full of a Lancia right in front of us as they power the way along. There has been some drive for Connor Achitella off camera, by the way. We will try to get a replay of that when we can, although with time remaining right now, we may not be able to. But right now, Bertolucci literally right in the back there of McFarlane, but now looks to the outside. Here they go. Melio looking up the inside as well. Melio wants to place back of Bertolucci this time, but the fairest possible way he does so. Inside to outside, however, that's going to put him offline. He'll go for the switchback instead with the Audi driver. Melio right now really using his knowledge, but it's not going to work out here with Bertolucci just parks the car in the apex of the system. And what you're going to do now? And will Bertolucci in the end, frustrating that Audi, no doubt about it, but in towards turn number 1. No way in at the end right now. Meanwhile, further back, well, we've lost Achitella a long way down the order. In fact, he's had to tow to the pitch due to an incident with 30 seconds left on the clock, and your leaders right now already making the way through turn number 3. We're not quite going to get a replay of it, ladies and gentlemen, but it has seen a return for the racer Achitella, who at the time was running comfortably inside the top 15 and was chasing what was 13th place, and with it, the inversion pole position for race number 2. So that's going to be absolute heartbreak there for him and the team at Yellow Flag Motorsport, when it was all coming together so well. But right now, the fight for 13th is Zachary Bowman keeping Evan Clavio behind. Clavio wants this. He knows if he can take it, he will be able to start from pole position. As behind that's Karen Leopold going side by side, and Matt Shepka's trying to get involved. Shepka, of course, has had his journey down the order. He's trying to now make his way back up the order. But on this final lap here, it may not be easy to do, as all these drivers continue to push each other hard, firm and fast. But they'll go single file now in towards Moss Hairpin 9. It's going to be the last riders. Meanwhile, not so for John Daniels, because he goes deep. Major wants to squeeze his way through. But we have to squeeze away from them, ladies and gentlemen, back to the front. Here comes Michael Polasek, and well, what a start today. It's been pole position, and he's led every lap of the race. He was kept honest by Wojciech Swirydowicz, but Michael Polasek will take victory in race number 1 of round 6 of the championship ahead of Wojciech Swirydowicz, your runner-up. Logan McKinzie completes the overall podium and the alpha podiums, and in the Gamma class, it is going to be 4th overall, but a win for Dan McFarlane just ahead of returning teammates to the grid of Ian Bertolucci. Matthew Mellior takes 6th place, and then rounded off the Gamma podium will be Mike D'Almeida. Raymond Tew comes home in 8th, just ahead of John Lauzon. But for Fuedao Ridgely, it finally happens. The nightmare of Okayama can be put to sleep. Ridgely takes his first win of the season in the Delta class. Major Modsfight in the end takes on home. Best spot in 11th, just ahead of Zachary Bowman, with John Daniels completing the run to 13th place in the end. Best of the rest, and not important for him. What's important is pole position for race number 2, and he's made that happen. And it'll be James Carl, Zachary Leopold, and Evan Clavio to 16th. Your Delta runner-up, Chris McDonald, takes 3rd place in that class in 19th, just behind Micah Hendricks. Austin DeBar rounds off the top 20. And then we will have a few more tries to finish their races, ladies and gentlemen. Give them all a round of applause as they come through. Jason Lynch just gone through the camera shot in 32nd, 15th for your Deltas, ahead of Kyle Flannery, and then it will be none other than Spencer Clark just behind, and Kevin Johnson, who makes his way on through in 35th place in the end, and he is going to be your last lead lap finisher as he comes to line. And Aaron Lahr, meanwhile, will be a lap down as classified as he finishes his race in 36th or 19th in the Delta class, but still getting some points on the board in the lime green mean machine. But as he comes up through, in fact, demoted there to 37th for Connor Achitella's tow to the pits on the final lap. Well, ladies and gentlemen, everyone cools things on down, and it's time to make our way into the warm-up period here for our second race of the day. But as we do, well, the great thing is we have plenty of time to bring you those race results in the first race, and here they are, subject to Eddie Stewart's inquiries. And as we can see, after our first 25-minute sprint race here for round number 6 of Season 16 of the Alpha Touring Challenge, powered by Syncmesh and Glass and Steel Photography and Design at the Canadian Tire Motorsports Park, Michael Polasek, another overall and alpha win. The Yellow Flag Motorsport driver now takes his 5th win of the season, 1.3 seconds ahead of Wojciech Swirydowicz. In the battle of the Veloster versus the Honda, we saw the breakfast dinner Honda had the speed in the opening corners, but it didn't quite have the speed on the latter half of the lap, and that's where the Yellow Flag Motorsport Veloster Polasek was able to break away. Still, Swirydowicz will be happy to be second and making sure to be 4 seconds ahead of Logan McKinzie, who in the number 4 in the end for Pensole Super Touring made sure that his door number didn't reflect his vehicle position. Instead, the number 4 position went to your Gamma winner of Dan McFarlane. Sublime. The Sim Racing grid driver in the end, did a brilliant job to make his way through from his starting position and get onto the back of Bertolucci, but a bit of intervention and contact between Bertolucci and Melior opened up the door, and McFarlane was never going to say no when the Gamma lead in the championship is looking so close. Bertolucci in 5th then on his return to the grid. What a result for a return and a 2nd place in the Gamma class, but a bittersweet one, knowing it could have been the Gamma win and a 4th place. The Sim Racing grid 1-2 is then followed up by CRG's Matthew Melior, overall in 6th, and then your 3rd place in the Gamma class, making sure it's not what is a Sim Racing grid 1, 2, 3 on the Gamma podium. Mike D'Almeida there in 7th. He was then followed up by Raymond Tew for Beaver and D's, who was then in turn followed by his teammate of John Lauzon, and then it was Ferd Hour Ridgely there. I do apologise for just referring to him as Ridgely a few times, ladies and gentlemen. Excitement getting away with me, but Hour Ridgely taking his first Delta win of the season, nailed the pole position, and in the end nailed a top 10 finish. But for him, it's so much more precious than that Audi RS3 for CHG, because it's that first Delta class win that escaped him in Japan, but he's finally made it here. It happened today, a further 3 rounds later. Major Monster Survive taking a length there, best of the rest, the privateer just ahead of Zachary Bowman for Pennzoil Super Touring. And then John Daniels completing the run of the top 13, and an important finish at that, because of course, understandably, meaning now he's going to be your pole sitter for race number 2. The T0 Racing Summit Trial then being followed up by none other than James Carr for Breakfast for Dinner, ahead of Zachary Leopold for Formula Llama. And then we did see in 2nd of the Deltas, Evan Clavio, who made steady progress early on in the race, but the Gamma battle intensified, and in the end, I suspect they're just being gradually elbowed down, but also knowing he needs to preserve a key result, given he still finished ahead of a good number of his rivals there. And indeed, that 2nd place in Gamma in the Delta class is going to be valuable as this season goes on. Matt Shepka took 17th, just ahead of Micah Hendricks, who made his way all the way back to 18th after falling down to the bottom end of the top 30 right at the start of the race. And the Croc Promotions driver then followed up by Chris McDonald, who was your final podium finisher in the Delta class there for Gator Racing, ahead of Austin Dunbar, who ran off the top 20. Outside the top 20, let's not forget about them. In 21st, it was Jared Kalnins, the privateer once again delivering a solid top 5. In the Delta class, ahead of Mark Darnell for Gator Racing, and Ronald Meffo again right behind Darnell at the finish. These two, they have definitely got a rivalry that started at Watkins Glen, and I suspect the Gasparilla Motorsport driver now wants it to continue all the way to the end of the season. Damon Mitchell started from the pit lane, but what a drive from him to move to 24th there in the Croc Promotions car in a Kermit the Frog livery that only a mother could love. And then we did see Gareth McAllister there taking 25th, the Australian driver for Monster Energy Racing, just ahead of Sean Gerd. And well, it's Tyler Long there with a dismal qualifying session, and what a miserable racer as well. Only 27th for T0 Racer Descent. This is damage limitation at its finest here today from him. Jonathan Bradford taking 28th, just ahead of the other privateers, Zach Hudaka and Joseph Heath, who completed your top 30. And there was Mitchell Richmite in 31st, ahead of Jason Lynn, with Carl Flannery there for Gasparilla Motorsport, 4 seconds ahead of Spencer Clark in their late battle in the race. And the Kirby Enthusiasm Autosport drive then followed up 12 seconds behind by Kevin Johnson. And there was a lap down with an instant right at the end of the race for Connor Achitella for Yellow Flag Motorsport, which kicked him out of an opportunity for a top 13 finish. And we also did see a lap down finish for Aaron Lahr, and it was 3 laps down for both Jacob Wilson and JB Dejoux. With Dejoux having a technical issue with the car, I wonder if we won't see him on the grid for this 2nd race, because if so, that would be very sad, given one of our long-standing veterans in the 621. And then Francois Schink completed the top 40 there with an early retirement from the race for Kirby Enthusiasm Autosport due to a technical issue with the car when he was running inside that top 10. But as we continue our way down that finishing order, as we get ready to head to the grid for our 2nd race, ladies and gentlemen, do apologise for that. It's just a slight technical glitch on our livery, well, in our overlay, I should say. Jeremy Barber finishing at 41st ahead of Jason Breed, and there was also retirements there for Cole Trost, Zach Saunders and Kurt Smith to complete your 45 runners. But in perfect timing then, we make our way to the grid for our 2nd race of the day, and this is how they line up once again, ladies and gentlemen. It is we're top 13 inverted grid. There is going to be John Daniels there starting on pole position for T0 Racing Summit, ahead of Pennzoil Super Touring's Zachary Bowman. It's an all Gamma front row, and the theme of Gammas continue. Starting 3rd, it'll be Major Mod Survive, the privateer just ahead of your Delta pole sitter. And well, how about this? He has got a perfect opportunity to try and make it 2 from 2 has Ferd Hour Ridgely for CHG. Can he do it today? Can he get the maximum score in the Delta class? Well, 25 minutes and we will find out. Then it will be none other. And then John Lauzon, who starts in 5th for Beaver D's, ahead of his teammate Raymond Tew. They've got a great opportunity here to move forward and make amends to the previous race and also get some huge teams points. They're ahead of Mike D'Almeida, who starts 7th for Yellow Flag Motorsport, ahead of CHG's Matthew Melior, the highest alpha driver in this reversed grid. We have Ian Bertolucci starting in 9th for Sim Racing Grid, ahead of his teammate of Dan McFarlane. Expect sparks to fly between them. And outside the top 10, best to SLM, it's Logan McKinzie of Pennzoil Super Touring, ahead of Breakfast for Dinners, Wojciech Swirydowicz. Then we do have Michael Polasek, race 1 overall winner, the alpha pole sitter from race 1 as well, now starting 13th, knowing he's got the work to do here in the number 1, but it's not going to be an easy one, I can definitely tell you that for him. And James Carr will start 14th there, just missing out on what would have been the top 13 inversion, but the Canadian driver knowing hard work makes the dream work here, and he'll be looking to tuck his way into the top 10 as quickly as he can. Zachary Leopold starts in 15th place, just ahead of Evan Clavio, the second of your Delta drivers, and then we will have behind him, starting in 17th, Matt Shepka ahead of Micah Hendricks. And watch out for the Crop Promotions driver. Can he continue to come his way through the field? And can he potentially look at hunting down what would be a top 10, if not a chance at a top 5? Chris McDonald and Austin Dunbar, your 2 Delta drivers there, complete your top 20. No, they've still got work to do if they want to get after Clavio, let alone get after Fred Ridgely. And outside that top 20, starting in 21st place, it's Jared Calnins ahead of Mark Darnell. Ronald Meffo, his rival for Gaspar Mosport, starts in 23rd, just ahead of Crop Promotions Damon Mitchell, who on that rate are not given how he moved through the field in race number 1, we can expect him inside the top 10 by the end of this one, surely, if the maths adds up. Then we have Gareth McAllister starting 25th, just ahead of Sean Gurd, with Tyler Long and none other than Jonathan Bradford completing that 14th row. And on row number 15 to complete the top 30 is Zach Hodako and none other than Jason Heath. Outside the top 30, we then do see what will be the machinery in 31st of Mitchell Richmeyer ahead of Jason Lynn, where Carl Flannery begin this one in what will be 33rd ahead of Spencer Clark, and then we will have Kevin Johnson starting 35th, just ahead of Connor Ashton for Yellow Flag Motorsport, who looks to try and make a recovery in this one, and he's back on the grid once again, which is good to hear. And we do have Aaron Lahr starting 37th, ahead of Jacob Wilson, and then JB Dejoux is back on the grid once again, ladies and gentlemen, I'm pleased to say, starting 39th. The technical issues have gone away, with Francois Schink back as well, starting 40th, and then completing that starting order on row 21, it's going to be Jeremy Barber and Jason Breen, and then we do have Carl Trost and Zach Saunders on your 22nd row of the grid, and then Kurt Smith starts last but not least in 45th place. But with that, that's perfect timing, because it's time for us to go racing once again, ladies and gentlemen. The lights are going on. 45 starters. Who's going to be the winner come the end of it? Without further ado, it's fire lights. And it's lights out, and away we go for the second time today here in race number 2 at Mosport in round 6 of the championship. And John Daniels there gets a good start, and Zachary Bowman can't quite match him. Fred Ridgely, meanwhile, immediately up in the third for a brief moment. But Major Monsawai comes back at him on the inside there into turn number 1. Now they roll their way over the hill and in towards turn number 3. And as they do, well, through turn 2, they'll go first. And all these drivers right now, a bit of cold tyres. They will run out a bit wide there. And who exactly is going to fall down? That's John Lauzon, who runs all the way out. And so does Mighty Almeida. They're both into the barrier. 3 of them into the barrier. That's Shepka. They've all got out wide. And it's all went up in tears as quick as that. And it's no joke with regards to understeer on cold tyres here. And how dangerous turn number 2 is at the start of the race. They all cleared it so well in race number 1. But in race number 2, it's gone backwards for a couple of drivers whose races have clearly become undone. That was Shepka, D'Almeida and Lauzon. Meanwhile, everyone else has survived the opening couple of quarters, and now progress will be made by those. We see Damon Mitchell already up into 21st place, and as he rolls his way forward right now, well, he's definitely thinking to himself that a top 15 is highly possible at this point in time, as all the field carries its way on. And right on further back, because we've got several drivers who are out of position given their retirements in race number 1, including none other than Francois Schink here, who's probably thinking to himself right now, I've got to get involved a bit more. But what we can see at the very front of this group, Carl Flannery right now trying to push on, but it's going to be Jason Lynn and Connor Achitella right behind as they all scramble together. As they scramble and get ready to go on to lap number 2. Well, coming in towards the S's here, is it going to be a move coming forward from Achitella? The answer is he tries it, but it's not going to work out. Meanwhile, at the front of the field, out the opening quarter, Zachary Bowman takes the lead for the race over John Daniels. Major Monsawai tucks up the inside. Here we go then, lap number 2. And well, after an interest in lap number 1, it's going to be Raymond Teals to get it through. So Daniels demoted to 4th. Then it's Matthew Melior, your leading Alpha driver there in 5th, ahead of third Ridge, who's in 6th, dropping down. But to be fair, he knows he doesn't need to win this race overall to bring home a huge haul of points and really open up his Delta Championship campaign. Bowman trying to break away. Then Major Monsawai having to go defensive here. Looking up the inside was Tiu. Tiu known right now in what is the Uwu painted livery there on the front at least. I wonder if that is an anime reference. Or as they make the way on through up towards what will be turn number 4. Monsawai right now holding on as much as he possibly can, and Melior, he really wants to try and put a fork in amongst all these Gamma drivers. The Alpha leader at this point, he knows he needs that overall win if he wants to bring himself closer to the top 5 of the Alpha Championship, but we will see what he can do about that. As they all make the way out of Moss Bend, everyone immediately back into line, the stern formation here, and being very patient. And you can see definitely how all these drivers are so used to racing amongst each other. The professionalism is absolutely superb. They know where to fight, and then they know where they need to go single file in order to make sure they don't lose time to the car in front. and understanding with the top 13 and 32nd racer today. Therefore, you do have to play that patience game a little bit more if you want to make up those places. But then the patience wears away as Melior now making a move there onto you. Up the inside he goes for third, in towards the S's. John Daniels here still trying to chomp his way back versus Bertolucci. Bertolucci, the Brazilian, right now getting back ahead of him again. And Logan McKinsie's on the back of this. And Polasek and Swirydowicz, they have swapped places already. Polasek ahead of Swirydowicz. That happened on the opening lap. They make the way on down. In fact, that happened on the straight there. We just missed that off camera. Our apologies. Indeed, a bit of misinformation there, but it does seem as though Polasek now up into 10th, but Swirydowicz, I think, following him here and recognising the fact that Polasek can be his battering ram, and therefore he can save his tyres a little bit more for later in the race, potentially, where that Honda does have the better tyre degradation pattern by comparison with the Veloster. See all these trying to make the way into lap number 3. There's still more fighting to come as Bertolucci right now has a sneak peek from John Daniels up his inside. Daniels tries it. They give each other space to cooperate, but Daniels right now knowing an inside exit means he's also going to have a slower run. Here comes McKinzie. And McKinzie looking up the inside into turn number 4, goes for it, and Daniels goes to turn in and suddenly realises he can't, and McKinzie moves up into 6th place there. Bold move from Logan McKinzie, but the Pennzoil Super Touring driver has got work to do. Meanwhile, Tyler Long sweeps his way around the outside there. Sean Gerd. Long is now up into 8th in the Delta class, or 22nd overall, so there might be some hope yet for Tyler Long in this second race today. When things have gone backwards in race number 1, here in race number 2, I think he's finally found the rhyme and rhythm he's needed, but he's got now 1.3 second gap to Austin Dunbar to close down. And that's going to take a bit of effort, but never say never, to be fair. Indeed, coming back from adversity is what champions are made of, and that's what Tyler Long needs to overcome here, like he did at Charlotte Roval back in round number 2, where it all went wrong in qualifying in race number 1, and in the end he got it all back together in race number 2 and made it the Delta class win there, coming all the way through the field. But as we can see, they're Long now leaving Gerd and McAllister to fight each other. McAllister goes outside to inside. He's still there as McAllister. Lovely move, and Sean Gerd right now doesn't have a response here as they come through in towards turn number 10, and it's going to be Gareth McAllister who takes that place there, now trying to follow Tyler Long, trying to channel the inner portion of the Delta Championship leader if he can. Meanwhile, back towards the very front we go. Polasek versus McFarlane. Now Polasek going around the outside to inside here through 1 into 2. And McFarlane, I don't think he's going to have a response to this other than to let it go. He's got to be careful. As here comes the breakfast for dinner Honda of Wojciech Swirydowicz looking up the inside and wants to go too wide into the bend right now. You can see they're looking all the way around the houses, but the number 80 can't quite make its way on through. Back into the draft he goes, and now coming on towards what will be the next stretch of road. And well, the Polish driver here looks one way, then he looks the other way. And what's the answer going to be as he rolls his way in towards the next braking zone? And the answer is going to be, it's going to be close, it's going to be furious, and rolling off the apex. And well, you can see how the fact that's another move made there already from Polasek up the inside of Al Ridgely. Meanwhile, Swirydowicz now being held up a little bit here. This is not going to be easy, as we can see him literally maxing out the revs there in what was 4th gear. That's the problem with the Honda here, as he now goes complete to the red line in 5th gear as well. This Honda has not got straight line speed in terms of acceleration. He's got to max out of gears to get every little bit of acceleration. The torque curve really flat by comparison. VTEC certainly not kicking in, as meanwhile Matthew Melior here, if there was an Audi equivalent of VTEC, it's definitely kicked in for him as he's moved up to 2nd there. Getting ahead of to you, Bertolucci and Mon survive, but they're all queuing up behind, and now he's only got one more to overtake here. He's made his way through the Gamma henchman. He's now got to the Gamma boss man of Zachary Bowman there, if we're to use the modern gaming equivalent. But as they roll the way in towards turn 1, is he going to be a level 1 grunt, or is he going to be a level 100 boss of this field? Well, we'll have to wait and see as he rolls his way to lap number 5, but it is getting intense towards the front, and Zachary Bowman right now, well, the Pennzoil Super Touring driver knows there's a lot at stake here. Firstly, it's for his own Gamma Drivers' Championship. He's been selfish. Secondly, in the Teams Championship, if they can take the win, Pennzoil Super Touring, they would get a huge haul point, and that would really give them a nice comfort zone at the very top of the overall Teams Championship. They need this from Bowman if they can. But right now, Melior is getting close, and he is getting tantalisingly close already in that Audi. Something has definitely clicked for Melior as well. He is looking much quicker in race number 2 compared to race 1. I think race number 1 might have been the rehearsal here, and he's been saving up all his energy for this one. And indeed, they're only 25-minute races. They take a lot of stamina out of you, I can tell you that, ladies and gentlemen, and how our drivers do it is absolutely beyond me. I definitely wouldn't even be our last 1 race, let alone 2. But as they come down that back straight right now, here comes Melior, looking out the first time. Now looking again, building up that speed, getting into top gear. He's going to sweep all the way out here, but will Bowman be able to hold it off? They're halfway down the straight. Now they're getting ready for that braking zone very soon. The 100-metre board is coming up. And already Melior sweeps his way on through there. Bowman's not got a response. And in the end, the Audi just too strong in terms of straight line speed. Let's go see Bowman fall back to second, but he's still your Gamma leader. The overall lead now is down in the hands of an Alpha driver, and meanwhile, Logan McKinzie here, he takes a sneaky peek up the inside of Major Monsoy. I think he's got the word over the radio from Bowman, which is, I've lost the lead, Logan. I need you to get through here. I need you to help me out. Well, he's got his own problems here because here comes Michael Polasek. Now, Polasek looks around the outside. He's done this already once today. He's going to do it again. He did it to John Daniels. Now he's going to try and do it to Logan McKinzie, and he does so. McKinzie too wide with him, but in towards turn number 2. Surely this is only going one way as McKinzie has to back off in the end through the risk of understeer, and he does. Michael Polasek moves up into 6th place, second of your Alphas, and he then tucks up the inside of Major Monsoy. My good lord, this man right now, it's almost as if he's dancing to the rhythm around here. He's just simply picking up the places as quickly as he taps left, right and centre, and well, now trying to look around the outside of turn number 4. He's going to stay there. He's not backing off, but in the end, he's just not got enough of an overlap, but he's going to send it on the inside, only then to try and get Monsoy to go deep, and Monsoy will go deep as a result, and Polasek right now, you can understand why he's your defending champion, because right now nobody seems to have to defend against him, albeit on the run of the back straight. We will see that Alonso be a little bit quicker with regards to acceleration, only by a small margin, and Monsoy will be able to start moving forward, but Polasek here on that inside line. In fact, as they now build up speed, sure to run the straight by comparison, although McKinzie now trying to push Monsoy along here. In fact, he's not going to. He's going to try and make it 3 wide. The door in the middle shuts there. He can't go for the Moses manoeuvre and park the touring car C's. Instead, he has to look at the inside versus Monsoy, but it's going to be inside to outside now for McKinzie. Monsoy defending the Hot Wheels, and well, rolling away left into right. He's going to get close there in towards White's corner, and behind Swirydowicz also tries to get involved. He's on the back of John Daniels as McKinzie clears Monsoy, but now Swirydowicz has got to try and cover through, and Swirydowicz has really struggled by comparison here. It's not working out for Swirydowicz, where it is for McKinzie and Polasek. Meanwhile, that's going to be a little bit of a run wide there from Swirydowicz originally, who drops down to 12th place. Micah Hendricks now up into 11th. Hendricks is going strong here, and all the battling's happening inside the top 15 right now. Zachary Leopold is at the inside of Evan Clavio. Clavio there going a little bit deep out the corner. Well, Chris McDonald's hot on his heels right now, and understandably, well, for Clavio, this is not good reading, because the sim racing grid driver does have one of his main rivals in the Delta Championship hot behind him. Tyler Long, however, is a long way back, the championship leader still. He's down in 22nd place, 7th of the class, but McDonald and Clavio are definitely fighting over that second place spot at the moment, and Clavio wants to try and make sure that McDonald is not going to get ahead of him anymore. But in towards the Moss Bend they come, and as they do, Jared Calnins and also Mark Darnell are there. Where on earth is the other man who we normally associate with Darnell? And that is, of course, Ron Meffo. We had something go very wrong at the very start. We need to get some replays when we can, but I think right now trying to find a low in the action to do so is going to be nigh on impossible, ladies and gents. We might have to force a bit of a low in the action at some point, but meanwhile, Cole Trost here He's doing a bit of recovery drive as he started all the way from the back of the field after that instant in race number 1 that we didn't quite see. But right now the T0 Racing Ascent driver on the back of Lynn and Lahr. Well, it's going to be the battle there of what will be 16th through to 18th in Delta. And Aaron Lahr right now in the lime green machine just trying to stay ahead as Jason Lynn having a dismal into his race number 1 and chose the same. But still, it's not about how you start, it's about how you finish. They always look for a high, these drivers. And here comes Strost getting closer and closer, but he doesn't pull out there. Lets Lynn take his line. And I think the idea here being simply put that he just wants to make sure that Lynn does not lose time to Lahr. But from then we come back to Daniels versus Al Ridgely, as Al Ridgely being passed on the outside here. Well, in fact, no, that is John Daniels going defensive. My apologies. Let's get that corrected. Daniels having a hold of Al Ridgely right now. The Audi driver looking fast and firm as James Carr would like that Audi out his way. He wants to go hunting after Daniels, the 6th in Gamma, but that's not going to be easy. Looking all the way around the outside and in. Can he sweep it around for momentum? The answer is nigh, because Zachary Leopold now is right there behind him. The Audi rolls out, and as they come down the hill, we ride on board with the Formula Lahr machine, who for the 72 is definitely looking left, definitely looking right. This is absolutely on the limit race of all these drivers. They all go a little bit deep here right now. Everyone wants to cut back, but the problem is they're all absolutely glued to looking at the car in front, and therefore whatever the lead car does, they all gradually get hypnotised into doing the same as that. I think Leopold did want the switch rate. You could see the body attitude of the car from the way we've been riding on board, where I think he was looking for the comeback, but in the car just carrying so much speed, because I think he broke even later compared to what Carr did. But here we go, straight line speed of the Audi. It is go, go, go. Pulling it to the inside here, and James Carr right now does not pull across. The breakfast dinner driver in the end just tries to outbrake Leopold by using the natural racing line, and does so. And Zachary Leopold has to wait once again. But you can definitely tell right now that the tempo is building between these drivers, and there's still time in this race. We are almost at the halfway point. We've still got plenty more laps to come. Your leader, meanwhile, Matthew Melior, currently holding on by the best part of half a second over Zachary Bowman, who is gradually falling away. Although personal best there for Zachary Bowman, a 25.71 to the nearest 100, with Tio and Bertolucci still behind him. So Melior will be hoping at this point he can just simply now abscond as the Gamma top three behind him all fight each other. Michael Polasek, meanwhile, well, he's going to play the role here, which is he wants to get on through and be a bit of a disruptive force. Now, first up is going to be the Brazilian driver Bertolucci. How can the American clear him? Well, it's not going to be at turn number 3 into 4 by looks things this time out. Polasek looks left, looks right. He's got a scheme for everything here. Well, as they get ready onto the brakes, what is the plan? I think it's going to be a drag race out of Moss hairpin. And Polasek there, look how close he is through the corner. That is a mastery of the double apex. And Polasek now only 2 tenths behind. Well, understandably, all these cars are getting the slipstream of the next car in the sequence. So it equalises out. But Michael Polasek here will essentially get the quadruple draft to Bertolucci's triple draft. Beyond 2 cars, it normally then starts to limit out how much slipstream you actually get in reality. But as they make their way onwards here, Polasek looking around the outside. No can do. Bertolucci going defensive, but we can see they're a bit of a mistake. That's going to be going sideways there. That's Raymond Tew getting it wrong. Here comes Bertolucci up the insider. It's Tew making a complete error. And as they roll the way in towards White's Bend, well, in the end, it's they say they don't attack until you see the whites of their eyes. But right now, well, with Raymond Tew, his whites of his eyes have definitely been exposed because Ian Bertolucci's gone full attack. And here comes Michael Polasek up the inside of Tew. And coming down the hill with 12 minutes left to go. Well, Polasek right now, inside to outside this time. Normally it's outside to inside for him here, so in the end he backs off entirely. He knows the outside is not the place to go. And Logan McKinzie is right there with him now, but Raymond Tew making the smallest of errors, but such a big error at that. And, well, it's been such a costly one, and that's now going to see him under pressure into turn number 3. Through the right-hander they go, and as they do, coming out to Quebec corner. Well, is it going to work out here for Polasek? The answer is maybe. He's going to back out into turn number 4 unless he feels confident. He does back out and then he goes to the switchback instead. Polasek right now all over the back of Raymond Tew like a bad rash. Dives at the inside. He goes away for it in the end. He was waiting to pull the trigger and he's pulled it right there. He's got it set firmly in his sights and he makes it work out. Michael Polasek moves up to 4th place and here comes McKinzie now for Raymond Tew. This is the most painful part when you get passed by one Alpha driver and there's another one waiting in the wings. They're all queuing up as behind we can see 2 wide between Monster White and Hendricks. Meanwhile, we're going to come to that very shortly. First, McKinzie trying to follow Polasek through. Does he get past what is Raymond Tew? I think he does. Then it's Monster White and fighting with Hendricks. And right now, Hendricks on the inside, the Croc Promotions driver, and now up into 8th place and started 18th. Micah Hendricks has had a phenomenal recovery drive here today, and he's continuing on that journey. But wait, there's even more battling going on because further behind, James Carr and none other than Fred Ritchie right now fighting over 12th place, the Delta leader at this point. Well, he's got to now stop letting the places go because not too far behind is Evan Clavio and Chris McDonald. Clavio is still ahead of McDonald at least for now. In fact, they have swapped places in recent history from what I gather, but the point being, he's got Clavio, McDonald and Cal Nins only 3 places back. So for Fernando Ritchie right now, he needs to make sure he's got a bit of a gamma buffer. He needs Carr and Leopold to stay there. But will he be able to, as we continue to focus on Clavio, you can see with McDonald and Cal Nins behind, things could change. Well, in fact, it's going to change because suddenly Kermit the Frog, Damon Mitchell makes his way up the order. And right now, well, I can tell you one thing, he's absolutely flying. This Damon Mitchell has come all the way from the back of the field and from 28th his starting position, in fact 24th I should say starting position. He's made his way all the way into 17th. He is still going up to Rated Odds Mitchell, and he's going to be in the heart of this battle in the Gamma class very soon. But further back, Ty Long here looking for a move around the outside of Kyle Flannery into turn number 4. That's brave, it's bold, but to be fair, he might be able to get it sold. Not quite in the end. Unfortunately, Carl Flannery's not buying it, and Spencer Clark now looks for an opportunity but runs deep himself coming from Moss Bend. So therefore, Long's going to feel a little bit safe in the fact that Spencer Clark made a complete ham sandwich of the hairpin and was not able to get the best run. But actually saying that, Spencer Clark now, as we jump on board here with your 9th place Delta driver, making his way along, he's in behind that Elantra, and Tyler Long's really not got any speed here whatsoever. I wonder whether Tyler Long's got an issue with the car. Alternatively, perhaps he's had to serve a slowdown of some description. That is very odd. Long just does not seem to have the speed we normally associate with the Elantra. Unless what he's done here is he's focused the setup of the car purely in the corners and sacrificed everything on the Mario Andretti straightaway. Well, if so, then Spencer Clark right now, knowing he's in a Honda that's quicker than an Elantra, you don't normally see that. And coming out to turn on 10, this is where you normally see the Honda a lot quicker, is on corner exit. And we'll get so close there, but has to back off it. But Spencer Clark right now, definitely looking at this. He's thinking about a move. Here he he goes. He's going to go for it coming out of turn number 1. And well, Tyler Long is going to have to go defensive as they roll their way over the rise and going all the way around the outside. Can he get it done? No, he touches the grass and he's going to understeer wide. Does he avoid the tyre barrier? Come on, Spencer, keep it going, keep the power down. He does. He just about avoids it. And in the end, he manages to steer himself back on track. Well done to him for doing that. That's not easy. Meanwhile, whilst all this is going on, well, with 8 minutes left on the clock, we still have plenty more entertainment at the front of the field as well, because Ian Bertolucci right now, he has lost Zachary Bowman. There is Bowman in the yellow Pennzoil Super Touring machine, making his way away. Meanwhile, Bertolucci has got Polasek, McKinzie, and Swirydowicz all queued up behind him, and we'll figure the odd ones out here, and you'd be right in guessing it's Raymond Hughes, the odd one out in this pack, because he is the other Gamma driver who wants to chase after Bertolucci for that second place spot in the class. But right now, well, can Bertolucci keep this whole pack of alphas behind him, of Polasek, McKinzie and Swirydowicz? If he does, well, Matthew Meliora thinks he'll be buying him a drink after this one, because Meliora right now has got a 3-second gap at the front of the field, and it's an extra second. It is 4 seconds to this group, and he'll be very happy of that. But Bertolucci immediately goes defensive here as they come down to the braking zone. Meanwhile, Polasek looks outside to inside. He keeps doing this, and as they make their way onwards, well, Bertolucci sees what's happening and immediately straightens the car out on the exit and says to him, okay, I know what your game plan is. I'm now going to put my car so firmly on the inside of Clayton's bench, you're not finding a way through. Of course, inside line, he understeers as a result of it, and Polasek in the end says, got you this time. As meanwhile, Swirydowicz looking left, right and centre behind McKinzie. He can't find his way through, as to you right now watches them eagerly and thinks, okay, you know what, perhaps I'll let them go. Micah Hendricks, meanwhile, still with them as well as he rolls his way onwards, and with the number 73 try now only 2 seconds away from battling with the lead group of Alpha drivers, excluding your race leader. How about that? Well, we'll have to leave him for a brief moment, because there's still a story to be told here with regards to Zachary Leopold versus Evi Clavio, as Clavio attacking the Formula Llama Audi. But right now, can he make his way into that 14th place and gain some extra points? The answer may not be so clear, as meanwhile James Carr there, well, he has Freddo originally alongside him, and Carr getting the better run out of the hairpin, and suddenly he's moved his way forward into what will be 12th place. Now originally right now, he's only got Leopold between himself and Clavio, and you can see that. Look at how Ridgely's car, he is bump drafting Carr immediately. That is a sign that right now he does not want to lose a second Delta win in a row. He does not want to spoil a perfect day here, but the pressure is building with 6 minutes to go. And right now, well, the 119 driver, I can imagine that cockpit, it's going to be so hard for him to concentrate at this moment, particularly when you're on course of essentially having a perfect day in the office. You already had one win, you're giddy from it, but you want two. But this race is gradually going towards your rivals instead, and you know you've got to try and hold on to these spots. But all he's got to do, he's got to believe himself at this point. He's got to mentally keep resetting himself every lap and go, I've survived this lap, on to the next one. You cannot be thinking about the man behind. Otherwise, you start to make mistakes, you lull yourself into even more errors, and you start to naturally lose pace. You start not to think about driving your lines, you start to think about everything else. But as we briefly lose in there, hopefully that's not a sign of a technical issue, ladies and gents. We don't want to see that happen to Al Ridgely. We're not playing favourites here. We just want to see the man have a happy day. Well, meanwhile, we see Francois Schinck battling here with Garrett Calnins. And carrying on ins on the inside of turn number 3, but now on the outside of 4. And Francois Schinck setting this up very nicely indeed. And well, the number 18 driver, who started all the way back in 40th place, has found his way through. Hold up a second. We've lost Wojciech Swirydowicz from what's the front of the field. He's been in an incident. Well, it's all kicking off again with 5 minutes left on the clock. That's one replay we will be bringing you, ladies and gents, very shortly. But meanwhile, well, there's even more fighting going on, because there's Monsavi fighting with Dan McFarlane for what will be 4th place in Gamma. They're drag racing each other. McFarlane's on the inside. Can McFarlane get this done here? The answer is going to be yes, he can. But behind them, Daniels versus what will be originally with James Carr right in front. And then it's going to be Zachary Leopold still queuing up behind with Clavio there as well. They're all watching this, but right now nobody's able to quite get involved in it enough. And meanwhile, James Carr is just trying to put what is the bung in the gap and trying to make sure the places don't fly out, as Carr's up into 10th place, passing John Daniels that run of the straight. But right now, originally Leopold and Clavio all want to get close. But meanwhile, very quickly, we take a look back in time to what exactly has happened to Wojciech Swirydowicz, and here we go, ladies and gentlemen. This is a sight for sore eyes. So it was in towards turn number 4 they went, and in the end Swirydowicz closed, but as he made his way down, hit the apex curve, the car came loose, it was into the barrier, and what was Swirydowicz chasing down a podium? It's all gone into the wall as quick as that, and it's gone backwards. And well, ladies and gentlemen, back to your live pictures we go, but that's heartbreak for him, and indeed a very important race result now that is completely out of his hands. But still more race to come. 4 minutes left on the clock here, and this race number 2 has absolutely been epileptic with regards stars, the madness of what's been playing out. But to be fair, it's been an incredible race, and I think we've got even more as that's sideways there for Francois Schenk coming to the apex of Moss Bend. That's going to give McDonald here all the pace he needs. The same for Cal Nins. They're all going to scramble over the back of the Alpha driver here. And well, right now, what can Francois Schenk do to arrest that? He's up in the 16th place. And now it's going to be 3 wide effectively as McDonald and Darnell are getting involved in this. Are they going to try and make it 4 wide here? Surely not. There's space for it. Only just. But you can see Darnell trying to help push McDonald along here, trying to help his teammate out. And as they make their way into that braking zone, well, Cannon's looking around the outside, but Chris McDonald does get ahead there. I think he's going to be grateful to Darnell, just giving him the little bump that helped him with 1 to 2 more miles an hour speed. And meanwhile, Chris McDonald now up in a 3rd place in the Delta class here, but Cannons and Darnell both chasing that podium. They both like to return to the podium at some point, but Cannons briefly disappears and reappears. Surely there's not technical issues for some drivers right towards the end of this race. Please, God, no. But meanwhile, as we look back here to Sean Gerd versus Spencer Clark, they're enjoying a battle behind Tyler Long. Long is still trying to make his way to the top 20. It's a long journey for him, no pun intended. But right now, I don't think that's happening unless Carl Flannery, Conrad Stella and Austin Dunbar all have nightmare moments in the remaining 3 minutes. But never say never, to be fair, of course. The conditions have stayed static. I don't think we're going to be seeing any rain here today, but the winds are definitely causing some of the drivers to feel the cars pull one way, then the other as they make their way through the corners. Carl Trost here taking a little bit of battle with Gareth McAllister, and we're in and can't quite find it, but he's going to try and take it now in towards turn number 3. And the answer is not to be there, as he's going to fall back with Joseph Heath just behind. But from them, ladies and gentlemen, well, we look back up the order very shortly, but we are going to stay with Trost for a brief moment, as he does get a better run there coming out towards turn number 3. I think it's going to be too far back here in towards 4 and 5. We'll keep an eye on them at the distance. We'll look a bit further back up the road to Mitchell Richmond, JB DeJoux and Zach Hudarko. 3 drives with 3 very different stories here today. JB DeJoux, of course, having a bit of a nightmare day by comparison in race number 1 compared to the other 2. And therefore he's had to try and make his way onwards. But they all push each other on here as much as they can. Well, getting ready for that next braking zone. Well, no change between them. Meanwhile, Sean Gerd here's got Spencer Clark literally riding his rear bumper, and Clark right now looking to the outside. And will Tyler Long be grateful there, because that will keep them distracted from battling with him. But Gerd goes defensive, and Clark's still there for CYA. He's going to look up the inside of the Kirby Enthusiasm Motorsport driver. Does have a bout of enthusiasm going all in. It's going to be inside to outside for him. Can he get it done? This is going to be the battle here for 9th in the Deltas. And in the end, Clark is still ahead by a nose as they go on to the penultimate lap. But in towards turn number 1, and in the end, Clark gets it done around the outside. Lovely move there from Spencer Clark. Sean Gerd fought it hard, but Clark does make the magic happen there. And behind, Hidarko still chasing these positions as they make the way in towards that next braking zone. But no change between these drivers then, as meanwhile we look back up the order. That's Hendricks up the inside there of Ian Bertolucci. Lovely move being made there by Hendricks. A very good move, and moving in towards 5th place as he tries to come on through what will be the right-hander of Moss. Now it's going to be a run from Hendricks to try and hold on that little bit longer. 2 attempts is the gap between them, and now making the way on down. As hold up a second, I think we've had somebody else tow to the pits. Zachary Leopold has had to tow to the pits at short notice. Well, we've got 50 seconds left on the clock. We might be able to get a replay of that. We may not, but here comes Bertolucci trying to come back at Hendricks. Can he get it done around the outside? He's going to go all in here. Does the Gamma driver. The 2nd place Gamma position isn't under threat, but there's some points that are. And in the end, Hendricks just holds him at bay as we are on to one last lap here at Mosport today. And Matthew Melior right now, well, all the excitement has happened further back. He's not aware of it because he's 4.5 seconds clear. There is Michael Polasek, who has found his way into 2nd. He's found his way past Zachary Bowman, but right now there is no way he's bringing that gap down unless Melior assists in that endeavour. But he's now in 2nd ahead of Zachary Bowman, your Gamma leader, and then Logan McKinsie's just behind him. Meanwhile, in the Delta class, Fuad Al-Ridji is still on course to make it 2 from 2 here today. He has got a gap because Damon Mitchell and Francois Schenk have intervened and got ahead of Evan Clavio. But Al-Ridji just now needs to piece together one more tour of the circuit, ladies and gentlemen. If so, he will take a perfect score today when it comes to winning the Delta class with bonus points. We'll see what he can do, as he's still got Mitchell and Schenk pushing along. He wants that 11th place. He wants the extra points here, as Tyler Long battling with Spencer Clark coming out to turn number 2 in towards 3, and Clark's going to be at the insider in there, so Long loses the place. He does lose to 9th now in the Delta class, and Clark moves up into the 8th place spot, so that's a change, and that is a very interesting change at that. But meanwhile, as we come all the way back up towards what will be your leader, here he is, ladies and gentlemen, and whilst Michael Polasek is pushing on strong, he is doing everything he can to keep Melior honest. It's not going to work here, because for Matthew Melior, we may have benefited from starting higher up in the race 2 grid, but he had to clear the Gammas, and in the end he's going to clearly make it a win of the season for himself here in race number 2 at Mosport. It's victory over 1 in Alpha for Matthew Melior, and then we will have the runner-up spot go to Michael Polasek ahead of your Gamma winner of Zachary Bowman, Logan McKinzie comes on through behind ahead of Micah Hendricks, and then it'll be Ian Bertolucci who holds on for the second place Gamma spot ahead of Raymond Teo, who rounds off the Gamma podium. But here he is, ladies and gentlemen. He's made it 2 from 2 in the Delta class today. Fuad originally does take perfection here in 12th place overall. He lost out to Damon Mitchell for 11th, but he won't care about that. He'll have made it happen, and he'll be pleased that. Meanwhile, second in the Delta class, it is going to be Evan Clavio with a huge result that moves him forward in the chase to Tyler Long, and Chris McDonald was never too far behind. 16th overall, third in the Delta class, and right now the Delta class championship is definitely open up and a considerable rate of knots. In the end, it could only be 9th in class, 23rd overall for Tyler Long. Has not been a race or day to remember for what has been your Hyundai Elantra driver, but that's the way it goes sometimes. And Mike de Almeida, meanwhile, making his way, his merry way along here down the back straight. It's gone very backwards for him today, but still, credit where it's due to him. You always finish the race once you started it, if you can, because it's always a little bit of satisfaction knowing you did see that checker flag, and that's exactly what the yellow flag motorsport driver is doing. And also, he guarantees himself some points, because we do award points in the Alpha Touring Challenge all the way up and down the field. It's not just the top 10, it is a whole field there. There's overall points for everybody as he finishes in 32nd in the end. But as he cools on down, ladies and gentlemen, well, we need to take a look back at what exactly happened right at the end of the race to other drivers, and particularly for none other than Zachary Leopold, who was at the time battling inside the top 15. And well, here's a replay to explain. So this is where it all went wrong with Zachary Leopold, fighting right towards the end there with John Daniels for 11th place, under braking. The Formula One driver went, oh my good lord! And in the end, a mistake on braking there, and will hit the apex curb and immediately towed to the pits, knowing that if his car rolled back any further, he could have collected the whole field. This is what it looked like from the onboard of John Daniels. Meanwhile, it was a huge jump between the two of them, and well, Ryan is wound down here. You're going to see Sonny Leopold just come up the inside of him and tries to get it stopped, and Daniels goes to turn. He has no time to react there, and indeed, that's going to be a tricky one for the stewards to look at. I wonder if it'll be classed as a racing incident just because of the approach angles of both cars. Leopold went for the move, hit that apex curb, the car went flying forward, and Daniels in the end had no opportunity to see that coming, and in the end, he did just go straight into the back of Leopold, and it all fell apart. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, well, we head back to your live pictures. Indeed, let's take a look at those post-race results subject to any stewards' inquiries. And well, as your circuit falls silent, here are those results, and they come up on screen. And as we can see, after an incredible 25 minutes of racing, race number 2 today. To be fair, race number 1, I think that was just our entree. Race number 2 was the main feast, and what a feast we have had here at Mosport in round number 6 of season 16 of the Alpha Touring Challenge, sponsored by both Syncmesh and Glass and Steel Photography and Design, and taking his first overall win of the season and in Alpha, Matthew Melior there for CG by 3.6 seconds in the end over Michael Polasek, who again took the win in race number 1 and finished second in race number 2. He's making a habit of this in what is our sprint race rounds, but to be fair to him, it's the majority of the points, and that's what matters most. The Yellow Flag Motorsport driver is his championship lead will continue to grow strong. And taking home third place on the overall positions, but the Gamma win, Zachary Bowman. What a result from him. And goodness me, ladies and gentlemen, I can tell you one thing for Zachary Bowman. He'll be very pleased with that because that is going to be his first win of the season. That ties him up in the battle with the Zacharys versus, of course, what is none other than the one race win seen last time out at Watkins Glen for Zachary Leopold. Logan McKinzie took 4th in the end for Benzol Super Touring behind his teammates. So the team having a huge injection of points coming into their championship campaign for the team's championship. That will keep them safe at the top for a bit of time. We have Micah Hendricks there finishing in 5th place in the end for Croc Promotions. And 9 today. It may not have worked out in qualifying nor race 1, but what a drive to finish inside the top 5 at the end of this one. Ian Bertolucci ran up in the Gamma class. And well, today definitely finding out that the wins didn't quite come his way. Whether the race 1 win went to his teammate Dan McFarlane or this time went to Zachary Bowman. But what a return to the grid for the veteran driver. Lovely to see him back, and we look forward to plenty more as the remainder of the season goes on. He was ahead of Raymond Hugh, who ran off the Gamma podium there, 7th overall for Beaver and D's. A better race compared to his race number 1, but still the team known today that they were outdone to a degree by their rivals, and Dan McFarlane just behind in there for Sim Racing Grid. A further 1.7 seconds behind, but understanding McFarlane had to prioritise dealing with what was coming up behind him. The priority at Major Mons 5 was one of those many drivers who took 9th in the end and rounded off the Gamma top 5 ahead of James Carr, the breakfast and dinner driver there, enjoying the thick of the fighting, and then Damon Mitchell for Croc Promotions coming all the way from a pit lane start in race number 1 all the way through to an 11th place finish and 7th in the Gamma class at the end of race number 2. That's some good going there from the American driver. Third, Our Ridgely, meanwhile, huge shout out to him, finally taking his first Delta win of the season, race number 1, and making it 2 wins back-to-back in the Delta class today, but the CHG driver will know that towards the end of this race, it was looking so precarious, but thankfully he was able to keep drivers of other classes between himself and his peers, and the last one he managed to hold in place behind him was Francois Schenk, the Canadian driver there who finished 13th for Kirby Enthusiasm Autosport. Behind Schenk's Honda, it was then Evan Clavio who took home 14th, second of the Deltas, and a great haul of points from him today for Sim Racing Grid, ahead of John Daniels who finished 15th there for T0 Racing Summit, and then we did see Chris McDonald round off your Delta podium there in 16th place, the Gator Racing driver just ahead of Mark Darnell, who once again knocking on the podium but couldn't quite make the magic happen. Still ahead of Jared Kalnins there, who returned to the top 5 in the Delta class. Great effort from him. And then we did see Connor Achitella with a recovery drive that brought him to 19th for Yellow Flag Motorsport, one of the unsung heroes of this race, ahead of Austin Dunbar there prior to completing the top 20. Outside top 20, in 21st, it was none other than Carl Flannery for Gasparilla Motorsport, who put together a great performance there to come all the way through from what was a 33rd place start to 21st, and with it also finished 7th in the Delta class. Well done to him. Spencer Clark was just behind, and what a battle between Spencer Clark, Tyler Long, and Sean Gurd, and Clark was the better of the trio in the end for Kirby Enthusiasm Autosport ahead of the T0 Racing and Gasparilla Motorsport drivers. With Sean Gurd, that completed your Delta top 10, and Mitchell Richmeyer was a bit behind it, 4 seconds adrift, but he was 4 attempts ahead of JB Dejoux, who made his way from the back of the field into 26th, and then we did see Zach Hodako, Carl Trost, Joseph Heath, and Jason Lynn complete that top 30, and behind the Gator Racing drive, it was Gareth McAllister in 31st ahead of Mike de Almeida. Zachary Leopold took 33rd in the end, a lap down due to his retirement in the end of the race with that contact with John Daniels. A bit of an unfortunate contact then. I'm sure they will talk about that after the race. And we also saw a lap down, unfortunately, for Matt Shepka, as we did for Jeremy Barber. It was 4 laps down with the retirement. With that huge moment at turn number 4 going into turn number 5 for Wojciech Swirydowicz, we're hitting that apex curb, just upset the suspension of his Honda, and saw him make his way into the barrier, and that definitely has torpedoed his championship charge, but he was ahead of Aaron Lahr all the same on the retirement schedule, and it was Jacob Wilson, Ronald Meffo, and John Lauzon completing that top 40. And outside the top 40, Kevin Johnson, Jonathan Bradford, Jason Breen, Zach Saunders, and Kurt Smith. Unfortunately, a non-start for Kurt Smith, as we've been informed, due to a technical issue with the car, and also, I believe, non-starts for Zach Saunders, Jonathan Bradford, and Jason Breen. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, well, that concludes our second race of the day. And goodness me, for the start of the second half of the season, of course, we might have been giddy with the celebrations of the 5-year anniversary at Watkins Glen, and a great way to wrap up the first half. But the second half has continued where we've left off. It has been explosive, it has been exciting, and it has absolutely been eclectic. And it does mean when we go to round number 7 in a week's time, we may just see those championship standings considerably shuffled. But with that, as our circuit falls silent, it is time, of course, for us to wrap up. Thank you very much for watching, and if you have enjoyed today's show, and perhaps you're sat there right now wanting to know more about the Alpha Touring Challenge, about how you can potentially get on the grid with us, or everything in between, well, as always, we do recommend you do head to our official website, and that is at alphatouringchallenge.com. Our website on screen here, it is literally the ultimate source of all information ATC. In a way, you could say that this is our equivalent of Wikipedia, but even more perfectly so, because you have access to all the season schedules, you have all the history of the season, the Hall of Fame, and of course the ability to check back at all the broadcasts throughout our entire 16 seasons, and also there are links on there to join the beating heart of the community, which is the official Discord. But if you don't necessarily go to the website, you can also just go on there quickly to find all of our socials, so there's plenty of opportunities there for you to follow all things Alpha Touring Challenge, and of course you can catch the weekly broadcast here at Paul Walsh Productions. But also we'd like to take a moment to say a big thank you to our titles sponsors for this series, or our partners we should really say, and first up is Syncmesh. Now, born out of the pursuit of one man's search for better gear for sim racing, Syncmesh is the company which provides purpose-built gear for sim racing, ranging from gloves through to full line of performance wear. With an obsession to detail in their gear, which aligns with your attention to detail in nailing lap after lap on the simulator, you could not ask for better gear to make your racing experience better. And if you'd like to know more, do head to their website, that is sync-mesh.com today. We'd also like to say a big thank you to our other series partner and title sponsor, that is Glass and Steel Photography and Design. The Alpha Touring Challenge's official photographer, who you've seen on the grid today, Jason Lynn, is a highly talented and approachable individual who provides both photography and livery design services for the iRacing simulator platform as part of Glass and Steel Photography and Design. But do not just take our word for it. With 5-star reviews from his clientele, citing him as easy to work with, detail-orientated, and a very fast responder, if you're looking for pixel-precise photography or a livery design to dominate the competition, then why not head to his website at glassnsteel1.wordpress.com today. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, we now turn our attentions to next time. And in a week's time, for the first time in the series history, we head to Mexico for what will be the Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez, or also known as the Mexico City Grand Prix circuit. There at the high altitude circuit, will we see a change of fortune, because things have definitely been shaken up across all of our standings so far. Albeit the one consistent is that Michael Polasek is the man to beat overall and in the Alphas. But meanwhile, in the Gammas, we've seen Flesh Blood inject new life into the grid, including none other than the return of Ian Bertolucci. And in the Delta class, we've finally seen the dawn of Ferd Al Ridgely, but how much closer can he get to the struggling Tyler Long and also the rising charges of Evan Clavio and Chris McDonald? We'll come tune in as it were live next time on Tuesday the 17th of February 2026 to see how the story continues in round number 7. But until then, we have been the Alpha Touring Challenge. I've been your host and commentator, Paul Walsh, and until next time, as always, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, remember to stay on track. Good night.